Hello everyone and welcome back to another Smash Ultimate tier list. It's been quite a while since we've done one of these. I believe my last one was for patch 10.1, and this tier list is going to be regarding the final patch of the game that we recently received. It's been quite a bit of time since that patch has happened, so we've been able to digest some of the changes and we've seen a lot of characters in different tournament play, so now I think I'm able to make a tier list for the final patch. And let's just jump right into it. Quick heads up before we start, I just wanted to let you guys know that my tiers are a little bit different this time. For my last tier list, I had the typical S, A, B, C, D tier. And while I don't think that's necessarily bad, it doesn't give you much insight into what my thoughts are. I'm just giving you a bunch of chunked tiers and you decide for yourself. But for this tier list, I decided to be a little bit more specific and give more description for what the tiers actually are. So instead of S tier, we have Super Viable, which I believe means that the character is able to win a major tournament without any secondaries. As opposed to A tier, we have Solo Viable, which is a character can win tournaments as well, but might need a secondary for some matchups, and they're a bit less consistent than the top tiers above them. Right below that, we have the Viable tier, which is able to get top 8 at a major tournament with secondaries for the bad matchups. These characters, their matchup spreads aren't as good as the ones above them, and they might need secondaries to get into that upper echelon of play. I put Borderline, which is for that middle area that I find a little bit of weird and rather inconsistent characters to be in. And then for Unviable, the characters that they have too many bad matchups. Secondaries, if you're playing secondaries for these characters, that secondary is going to become your main because you're going to have to constantly pull them out and they're just unable to perform well in a tournament setting. And final note, as we all know, this was quite a while since I have done one of these, so I have a lot of different opinions this time around, so be ready for a wildly different tier list than we saw last time. Right off the bat, we're already going to have a difference in what I believe is the worst character of the game. It's going to be Little Mac. Originally, I had Ganondorf here, but the more I think about Little Mac, he is very clearly the worst designed character in Smash Bros. History. The only reason a Little Mac should beat you is if you were misplaying. This character only beats you when it is your fault. The character is so poorly designed that if you stand on a platform against Little Mac, you have won the game, but you just have to wait 7 minutes for it to happen. And that's where the difficulties with fighting this character come in, because he's very hard to fight, because it is very, very exhausting to play patiently. But if you do camp them out, it is the easiest character in the game to beat, technically speaking. Exploiting his recovery is not where you beat Little Mac in this game. You beat him in neutral, you beat him by camping him out, you beat him by not letting him play the game. And therefore, this character should never win a match if the opponent is playing correctly. Not far ahead of him, however, we have Ganondorf. This character is moving through jelly the entire game. They are way too slow. Their game plan has to rely around hard guesses and hoping your opponent falls into their strong attacks, which is just not viable for tournament play. Moving right along, we have Dr. Mario. And for the Unviable tier, for these two tiers, I think I'm going to go a little bit faster than last time, just because we all know what's wrong with these characters, and I feel like most people are more interested in these upper echelon of characters than the ones down here. Not only is Dr. Mario clearly just a worse Mario, but he is one of the slowest characters in the game. He's probably the easiest character to camp in the game, even more so than Little Mac, just because Little Mac is so fast on the ground. And, having a down throw, down beat cheese at 60 on the edge is not enough to make you a good character. Funnily enough, this character is very, very popular in Japan. This character's biggest strength is definitely a frame 3 killing option out of shield, which is his up B, and that is probably the only thing he has over Mario. But yet again, even that is not enough to make this character viable. Next up is going to be Isabelle. Isabelle is another one of those characters that suffers from being worse than their echo or their counterpart, being Villager. A character like this, who although has decent zoning and actually does well against some characters that are better than her, she's unable to thrive in an environment where there's so many zoners and so many campers that are just so much better than her. There's almost no reason to pick her. Next up, very similarly to our last character, is Zelda, and she's honestly very bad for pretty much the same reasons. She's a zoner that does not have boxing options, and a lot of good zoners in this game have the ability to fight you when they're up close as well, and Zelda does not have that. And on top of that, her zoning is also not the best in her tier either. So not only are there zoners that do the other job better than her, there are zoners that do zoning better than her. A zoner, for those who might not understand, are characters that try to zone you out and keep you at a distance, whether it be with long swords or projectiles. And surprisingly, I think that's going to be it for my Unviable tier, which just shows how insane this game is. Over 80 characters, and I truly only believe that 5 are truly unviable. So let's go right on to Borderline. At the beginning of Borderline, we're going to have Mii Sword Fighter. In my last tier list, I did not place the Miis because I didn't feel like I had enough experience against them to place them well. I do believe that Mii Sword Fighter is by far the worst of the 3. This character is without a doubt, no question in my mind, the worst sword character in the game. The character has pretty slow and terrible frame data for being a sword fighter. The character is surprisingly slow, and I don't believe any of his special mix-ups are that good. I think they're all pretty bad. I think Tornado is grossly overrated. It's a very slow move that is very easy to dodge. And the Chakram is probably the best special move he has, but apart from that, he's a very lackluster character. Next up, we're going to have King K. Rool. I am a firm believer that King K. Rool is by far the worst heavy in the game. Well, I guess apart from Ganondorf. Unfortunately, he is a character that was subject to nerf culture because at the beginning of the game everyone was saying he was broken and too overpowered and the best heavy in Smash history, and he was actually nerfed, and it only took people a while after to realize how bad he was, which made his nerfs even more undeserved than they already were, making this character super garbage. Matter of fact, I think K. Rool belongs in the Unviable tier, just above Zelda. This character is atrocious. Next up is going to be Lucario. The main thing that Lucario suffers from is that his gimmick is not good enough for a game like Smash Ultimate where there is so much consistent killing and consistent kill setups. Against most characters above him, there is absolutely no reason Lucario should ever be able to get to a high amount of rage and a high amount of aura to kill you early. So many characters have killing grabs, killing throws, so many characters have killing combos, kill throw setups, kill setups. It's just so hard for Lucario to thrive in a game where so many characters are well-rounded and don't have trouble killing, which is what he's really good at exploiting, but he just can't do that versus most characters in this game. Next up, we're going to have Ice Climbers. Ice Climbers has arguably the best combos in the entire game. Desyncs make this character have 0 to deaths. There are setups to desync and setups to get into them, but that is quite literally the character's only strength. If this character gets grabbed once and you separate the two climbers, I do believe that should be the end of the character stock. The character gets advantage stated very, very hard, and it's very hard for them to get their one game plan out, which is getting a grab and desyncing with it, and I don't think the buffs matter very much with them. Overall, a character with almost infinite potential, but infinite setbacks as well, and I do believe that weaknesses outweigh the strengths, which is the main problem here. Next up is going to be King DDD. Whoa, whoa, whoa. This character ledge traps, and that is basically it. His neutral is non-existent. His projectile is one of the worst in the game because almost any hitbox will just hit it right back at him. Being a heavy with a disjoint is not enough to be a good heavy in this game. The combination of being a wacky, non-functional zoner plus being such extreme combo food make it very hard for this character to succeed in a tournament environment. Next up is going to be Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is a character who has a lot of sauce. This character's advantage state is very, very good. Having large, fast hitboxes, having a very good grab and grab combos, these large hitboxes that I previously mentioned comboing into each other many of the time, and having, honestly, some pretty good tilts makes this character have a very good advantage state, but it's everything outside of his advantage state that make him lackluster. His neutral is almost non-existent, and the worst part about him is his disadvantage. This character, if you up throw Donkey Kong, that should be the end of his stock. He cannot get down to save his life. All of his landing options are very slow and very committal, and this character gets beaten by pretty much all zoners, all swords, and any halfway decent up air should destroy this character. And a common trend among heavies in Smash history, and the reason I think heavies are always going to be so terrible, is because heavies are very bad against zoners and specifically sword characters. And there are so many zoners in Smash, if you cannot beat a zoner character with your character is probably not that good. And heavies are the embodiment of that. They are the pinnacle of being terrible against zoners. Next up is going to be everyone's favorite pink puffball, Kirby. I believe this character is bottom 10 in both airspeed and ground speed in the game. The character is incredibly slow and incredibly stubby. Kirby is a character that's very easy to camp out due to the lack of mobility that I just stated. As for the good part, Kirby's advantage state is very, very strong. Kirby probably has the best combined set of ground normals in the game. Down tilt, up tilt, and forward tilt are all incredible, but the problem with that is that you should never be at a range where Kirby can hit those moves. Kirby's a character that if they were a little bit faster, they would shoot up, probably up to solo viable. I think Marth is going to be the next character on the list. I should start things off by saying that the sword character archetype in Smash has always been very strong. So I actually value Marth a lot more than the characters below him. And he's not even here because he's like a terrible character, but he is simply here because there is no reason to play him when Lucina is strictly better in every way. The situation of getting a 50% forward smash tipper and killing center stage is going to come up a lot less often than needing to hit that single aerial off stage and not getting the tipper and they live until 170. That consistency is much better with Lucina, and she's going to be much higher than him for this reason only. Next up is going to be Piranha Plant. The only thing this character does is ledge traps, and I think even now, it's not as good as it used to be when he came out, just because the counterplay to Patui has gotten a lot better. People have realized that if he's hovering there with Patui, you can just grab insta-throw him to get the throw invincibility, and it won't hit you. The only way I can really see this character winning is either you're a lot better than your opponent, or they're just constantly running into Patui, and one of those isn't always going to be the case, and the other one is very inconsistent. He doesn't have the consistency and the tournament viability that the characters above him are going to have, simply because the recovery is not as good as we thought on initial release. The neutral is basically non-existent apart for Spike Ball, and all those flaws combine to be a pretty underwhelming character. Glad we didn't have to pay for this DLC. And next up is going to be Robin. I should start this off by saying that Robin is probably one of the characters that I know the least about in this game, simply because he's very uncommon and I don't have much experience against him in the matchup. I'm simply putting him here because it's just not happening, right? Like, we're not seeing any Robins getting top 8s or even getting noticeable placements in majors, so I can't justify putting him higher. The character's ledge trapping is very strong with Arc Fire. The fact that it doesn't need to be hit for it to linger, and it catches ledge hang, I believe, if placed correctly, is very good for ledge trapping. This character can easily kill you with stray hits. Things like down smash that linger for so long are also good for ledge trapping. But the thing that holds Robin back the most, in my opinion, is having a resource-based recovery. The fact that you can run out of wind tome and you literally can't recover anymore after a certain period is very bad to have in this game. The distance that it goes is fine, but they can easily get rinse and repeat edge guarded. And to finish things off, Robin is another one of those characters similar to Zelda, which is just a zoner that is unable to scrap. And with how many good zoners there are in this game, kinda go under the wayside, Robin. Not much reason to pick you over many others. Next up is going to be Banjo and Kazooie, everyone's favorite N64 game. To me, Banjo-Kazooie strikes me as a jack of all trades but master at none, except I don't even know if I could consider him a jack of all trades, simply because he's able to do a lot of things, but they're very, very mediocre and they're very lackluster. He has some type of semblance of zoning with pellets and grenades. On paper, he has pretty decent kill power with forward air and Wondering, but he falls in areas like recovery where against certain characters you quite literally have to use Wondering to recover because your normal recovery is just not going to do it for you. And his grenade is honestly just a pretty terrible projectile. It can so easily be caught and just thrown right back at him, and he can't do anything about it. I don't know if we have any reasonable tournament play of this character ever since Tweak used Banjo at Glitch and got 4th. Aside from that one showcasing, which in my opinion was mostly a player diff in most of his matches, it wasn't really the strength of Banjo. And I think to finish off the borderline tier, we're going to have Incineroar. Don't get me wrong, SkyJ is a phenomenal player, and I'm honestly very surprised he does as well as he does with this character. He got 13th at port priority, I believe, but the problem is that I don't think that is something that can realistically happen consistently. I would love to be proven wrong, because this is one of the community's fan favorite characters to say everyone loves when Incineroar is on screen, but I don't think the character's flaws are covered enough for them to be consistently placing top 8, and therefore being put in the tier above. I think he is definitely the borderline compared to these characters, so I would put him right here. And I'm sure some people might be wondering, this looks kind of weird so far, like, oh, you think Incineroar is better than Robin? Incineroar is better than Marth? I feel like most people wouldn't say that. And I do think these two characters are better than Incineroar, but the fact that they have direct replacements of characters you can use instead of them makes them lower than him in my opinion, whereas Incineroar kind of fills a certain niche that you might want to be going for in terms of a heavy. Before we get into the next tier, I just wanted to make sure that I changed it because I think it's weird to call this tier viable and then this tier solo viable, so I added viable with pockets. I think that better explains what the tier is about. Actually, I stand corrected. I think we're going to have one more character in the borderline tier, and that's going to be Bowser Jr. Bowser Jr. is a character that I'm definitely less knowledgeable on compared to many others, but I don't think, based off what I have seen, that I can put him in viable with pockets. Niche and weird strengths, and I'm pretty sure I mean to say strength, in the sense that he does surprisingly very well against fast fallers like Fox, because up throw into upper is extremely consistent and does a lot of damage to the character. And he also was recently buffed. The Koopa card, the side B, was recently buffed, and we saw what happened to Light against Ketchup at MSM, so this character is going to be killing with that even earlier. But even then, I think the recovery is very, very bad. Although I don't know exactly how it works, if you hit Bowser Jr. at certain positions, he doesn't get his card back, and he's unable to recover again, as well as getting rinse and repeat edge guarded because his recovery is so linear. And moves like Mecha Koopa are just straight trash. I swear every time I look back, I'm missing another character, so I think we have another character in Borderline. But looking back, I think this is going to be the final character. But I think Villager himself will go in Borderline. I'm going to put him, I think he belongs at the top. There isn't much to say on Villager. He's very similar to Isabelle, but some of his moves are directly better. I think Lloyd Rocket is better than Fishing Rod, and I think Tree is better than Lloyd Mine. And those two swaps alone make him a better character, but there isn't much to say about him. I think they both fall to the same things. I hate to sound like a broken record, but zoners that can't scrap, like Villager, Isabelle, they're just not going to be favored in this meta when you can just pick someone like Rob. They're just not worth it. So I don't think Villager deserves to be anywhere but this tier. And for viable with pockets, the first character we are going to have is Meta Knight. Meta Knight is a shockingly good counterpick character. I think he does well against Joker. I think he does well against Peach. I think he might even do well against a couple other top tiers. The problem that lies with Meta Knight is in the matchups that he doesn't win, he's sort of praying for his gimmick. He's hoping he hits you with the down throw or dash attack at about 20%, and he's going to get upper, up, bear, neutral B, upper, up, B, upper, nair. It's very linear, and the character is pretty much looking for only two things in neutral, dash attack and grab. And that leads to being very predictable, which is very bad when combined with his lackluster neutral and short sword. I think he's one of the best edge guarders in the game, and he can checkmate a lot of characters off stage, but this meta currently doesn't really favor edgeguarding. We haven't seen it much in tournament play outside of a few people, so I don't think that potential is going to be unlocked just yet. This character can absolutely go up though. Speaking of edgeguarding, next character I believe is going to be Jigglypuff. Base Mage is one of my favorite players to watch. Base Mage is hype. His Puff is some of the most fun I have watching Smash Ultimate, which is very surprising for how boring of a character Puff is. But as Marcus Pinkfresh would say, his Puff has the it. There's just something about his Puff that is really special that I don't see replicated, mostly because no one else plays this character, but that's besides the point. The problems with Puff have always been very apparent. The character is very floaty, the character is very light, the character is a lackluster neutral due to their lack of disjoints. But I view this character as like a mini Donkey Kong in a sense, where when Puff gets the hit, she gets the hit. She takes it as far as she can, and that forward throw is what puts her over the edge. Originally, I would have put her in borderline, but the buff that happened a while back, now that I'm seeing it in action, I think she's viable with pockets. If she forward throws someone off of the edge after getting a ledge trap, she checkmates a ton of the cast. Edgeguarding in this game isn't always used simply because it's a big risk reward because you're putting yourself out there, and a lot of characters edgeguard for free because of Magna Hands. But Puff says nah to all of that. She actually is able to exploit a lot of characters off stage, even my main Inkling, with her long-lasting Nair. The downward angle that forward throw sends at is perfect for characters like Puff, because even without edgeguarding, the character's already fighting for their life and they're forced to use resources very quickly. This character had one of the bigger rises in Ultimate, I would say. Most people put her in the bottom 5 at the beginning, but now that we're seeing the character in action, she's going a lot higher on people's lists. Okay, quick update before we move on to our next character. I've decided that when I am done with each tier, I am going to then go back and reorder the characters individually when I move on to the next tier. So my Unviable tier did stay the same, but I have now ordered my Borderline tier into what I think the individual character placements are. And now let's move on to the next character. Next up, after Jigglypuff, is going to be Bayonetta. This character has had a surprising comeback in the meta, with Lima doing as well as he does. I find it justifiable enough to move her up into this next tier, but I can't see her going any higher without some serious optimization due to the fact that her struggle with killing is so real, and it's very bad, and it's very hard for her to kill. Apart from getting the occasional edge guard, which is obviously inconsistent at best, her only consistent kill options are up tilt back air, raw back airs, forward throw, or jab. And the jab buff was probably the best buff that she received in this game's lifespan when we were getting patches, because having a quick kill option on the ledge when you're ledge trapping is very good. And when I was playing a little bit of Bayonetta myself, I really noticed the difference. It's not anything crazy like Bowser Jr.'s jab, but it's anything will help, right? But she's another one of those cases when it comes to rush down combo characters, she's not going to be your first pick by any means. Next up is the worst Link, Toon Link. I don't think it should be a surprise to anyone that Toon Link is the worst Link. I feel like we've known this for a while now, and I believe the biggest reason for that is him being floaty. The other two Links are extreme fast followers, which is very good, and they have very good nairs to get out of situations. And although their base fall speed isn't fast like Fox, when you actually fast fall with them, they're very fast, and Toon Link doesn't have that. So it prevents him from having a lot of mix-ups in neutral. So when he jumps in neutral, you know that there's only going to be 2 or 3 things that can possibly come out, because he can't really fast fall land grab like the others can. He can't do fast fall mix-ups. He doesn't have a lot of double jump mix-ups, and his sword is pretty lackluster. So I think this character is going to definitely stay under the wayside and stay down here, just because he has 2 very clear replacements that are a lot better than him. After Young Link is going to be everyone's favorite space pirate, Ridley. I find it weird that I'm putting Ridley as low as he is, because when I look at this character and I look at his moves in isolation, this character's moves are honestly pretty ridiculous. I believe that Ridley has the best forward tilt in the game, and I honestly think it's a pretty big margin between whatever the second best might be. I don't really have it in my head, but I think Ridley's forward tilt is significantly better than every other forward tilt in the game. I believe he has an argument for having the best Nair in the game. There are a couple characters that are always brought up in the conversation of best Nair, most likely Game & Watch and Palutena, but I think Ridley goes up there in that upper echelon too. His Nair is fantastic. All his tilts are phenomenal. All his aerials are incredibly good, apart from down air, of course. And I believe his forward smash is one of the best smash attacks in the game as well. I view it as somewhat of a mini Mario F smash, whereas his is stronger than Mario's, but Mario's is safe on shield, which gives Mario's the upper edge for me. But it allows Ridley to get really good punishes off of parry. He is a prime example of why base stats are so important. Despite all these phenomenal moves he has, his stats are just too bad to justify putting him higher. His ground speed is not that impressive. His size is very bad for how light he is. He's obviously not a lightweight, of course, but compared to other heavies, he does not get the benefits of living as long as they do, especially ones like Bowser. His recovery, although his up B is hard to mess with, I believe his recovery to be very linear, whereas if you send him horizontally enough, he quite literally can't recover because his up B only has 4 angles, unlike someone like Fox. I think if his recovery had cardinal directions, it'd be a lot better, and I think he'd be a lot higher. As far as I'm aware, we only have one Ridley who's really doing it right now in the meta, which is Nair from Mexico, to which Spargo, Meister, and Leo have all said that Nair is a very good player, but his character is what holds him back. So I would love to see more of him in the future. I believe that giving his up B 8 directions or making him a little bit heavier to compensate for his size would do wonders for the character's future in this game, but as of now, he's definitely going to stay down here. Next up, we're going to have what may be a surprising pick for some, but I do think Pichu belongs down here. I don't believe that it's strictly, oh, why play Pichu when you can play Pikachu? The character has flaws that were never being exploited in the first 6 months to a year of this game's lifespan, which is really unfortunate because they got heavily nerfed when I don't believe they deserved it at all. The first year of Smash Ultimate was purely aggression, purely running at each other and butting heads, and not only is the player who piloted Pichu, Void, very good at that playstyle, the character itself struggles a lot with camping, so the fact that they didn't have to deal with that for the first year of this game made them a lot better than they actually were in a lot of people's eyes, and I don't even think the character was S tier pre-nerfs. I think they've always been down here, but we just weren't realizing it until now, and many top players have expressed similar sentiments. A character losing top player representation of them, being Void in this case of course, is really bad for the character's metagame. Pichu loses to characters that aren't even zoners. I believe that if you get a stock lead versus Pichu, they should not win the game. No matter who you are, you can camp them out, and they're slowly going to do damage to themselves and kill themselves, and then you just go in for the kill. But when the Pichu player gets the lead, they're also looking to do that very thing to you, which leads to very, very one-sided matchups. I think Pichu's worst matchup is Snake. I think that matchup is 70-30 minimum in Snake's favor. And just to clarify, I like to clarify a couple, FGC and tier list terms when I'm talking about characters. When I'm talking about numbers such as 70-30, 55-45, 60-40, I'm talking about the characters' matchups and how good or bad they are. So on a scale of 100, the character with the bigger number will obviously be favored in the matchup. So if a character wins a matchup 55-45, they have a slight edge over their opponent, but it's by no means impossible. But like what I just said with Pichu, I believe the matchup with Snake is 30-70, so it's heavily in Snake's favor to the point where he really shouldn't be losing the matchup if you're an equal skilled player. Looks like we're going to have the two cutest Smash characters next to each other, because next up is Duck Hunt. Duck Hunt has one of the best neutrals in the game, by far. I think that's very obvious. The can, the frisbee, the gunner is just very, very good at zoning and very, very good in neutral. But this character struggles in 3 big aspects. Number 1, I think Duck Hunt has the worst up B in the game. I think it is clearly a significantly worse Olimar up B. It has no hitbox, it doesn't go very far, and it's incredibly slow and easy to take advantage of. Number 2 is going to be kill power. As far as I'm aware, I'm not very knowledgeable on the character, but the only real kill setups I see are side B into back air at around 80% on the edge, or you're going to land a stray can at 160. Number 3 is going to be his damage output. Although he can do damage in neutral with his stray hits and it does rack up rather quickly, he doesn't have many combos and he doesn't have many ways to get in apart from his zoning. I believe I heard Mars say something similar to this, and I couldn't agree more. Duck Hunt is a character that when you go to the results screen after the match is finished, you see that you did 200% and he did 450% and you still won the match. I have lived consistently until 180, 190 against this character. He struggles immensely to kill if he's not getting his very specific kill confirms, and a lot of characters can just avoid them. He does surprisingly well against a character that has been the topic of the hour for a while, being Diddy Kong. I think Diddy Kong mains universally agree that either Duck Hunt or Pac-Man is his worst matchup. But I don't think you're going to play Duck Hunt for this one matchup that he does exceptionally well in. And as I've said many times in this video, being a zoner without close quarter combat capabilities will inevitably put you lower in the tiers, simply because there are options that are strictly better and more well-rounded, and Duck Hunt absolutely falls into that category. Next up, probably one of the biggest emotions from my last tier list is going to be Lucas. I previously expressed the sentiment that I had a lot of faith in this character, and I put them in my A tier for my last tier list, which would have been solo viable for this one, but I think I was not giving the character's bad matchups and the character's flaws enough credit. The prime example of this is just DLC Pack 2. I believe that Lucas loses to every single character in DLC Pack 2 quite badly, like 6-4 at a minimum, besides maybe Kazuya. But I can still see that being in Kazuya's favor. But Sephiroth, Steve, Aegis, Byleth, and Min Min all beat Lucas very badly. I still believe in the character's strengths in terms of how good his aerials are. His forward tilt is in the conversation for being one of the best in the game, very close to Ridley's. His PK Fire is a very good zone tool. His 2-framing with down smash and down angled forward tilt are very effective. I did mention his floatiness as being one of his only flaws last time, But I think even more than that, his biggest flaw is definitely sword characters. I'm pretty sure that Lucas loses to every single sword character that I will be placing above him. So if you just want to keep track of that, you'll see why I think this character's fallen off quite a bit. I think I was overvaluing his tech potential and his overall potential, but potential can only take you so far when there's so much on paper things that are against you. So for that, Lucas will definitely be taking a sizable bump down. I think it's something like 10, 15 spots down from my last list, which sucks to see because I like this character a lot. Okay, so before we move on, I made a quick wording adjustment to my solo viable tier. I originally had it saying that you can win majors with this character, but you might need secondaries to do so. And then Super Vial is able to win majors without a secondary. And I think that's a little bit too much of a gray area for it to be a clear gap, because I do think there are clear gaps between tiers. So I worded it a little differently to something I'm more comfortable with, which is can get top 8 at a major tournament solo, can win a major as well, but might need secondaries to break that barrier. How it was originally, there were basically 2 tiers of winning major tournaments, and there was only a slight difference between the two. Now I think there's more of a defined gap, which I like a bit more. So let's move on to what my next pick is going to be, which is Richter. Simon/Richter, of course. T3 Dom he has been tearing up. He's been destroying California. MSMs, rest in peace, 2GG. Thank you for doing so much that you have for the Smash community. But, when MSM was around, T3 Dom was dominating California. But we haven't seen him attend many major events with multiple top players in attendance. And if we have, I don't know of his placements. So I think that it's reasonable for a character that is as polarizing as Belmont's to stay in the middle of these 2 tiers, because the consistent top 8 major tournament wins are something I don't believe a character with this bad of a recovery can have. The character honestly destroys most characters that I've put below him. He does very, very well against them due to their inability to get in. And he has a lot of free combo routes. And what I mean by that is he has a lot of either multi-hit or lingering or long-lasting moves that allow him to set up his combos very easily and allow him to take his time with things. Mainly his cross, his side B, the fact that it's a boomerang and it comes back allows you to set up a lot of situations that the opponent has to be looking out for, and your holy water. Once you land it, you can get falling aerials, you can get axes, you can get smash attacks, you can get anything you want, and it leads into more combo potential. We're not in year 1 of Ultimate anywhere where the Belmonts are going to get kills by just spamming axe at ledge with stray hits. The character kind of has to combo you to kill you, and he does have the capability to do that, but can he do it consistently is the answer, and I don't think it is. So apart from his recovery being the obvious flaw, it'd be a bit boring to talk about that, because there are certain characters that are better and worse in tournament environments due to how they function and how their difficulty might be. So a character like Duck Hunt or Snake, they're very hard to play in tournament because you have to constantly be focusing, constantly be switching up, constantly be adapting your playstyle, and doing that on the fly when you're playing different opponents every 10 minutes is extremely mentally exhausting. Whereas a character like Power Mithra, who is inevitably going to be very high, is just overall easier and more linear than the 2 previous characters of Duck Hunt and Snake, which makes them better for tournament environments because stress, nerves, anxiety isn't going to affect you as much in your play. And to clarify, I'm not trying to make an argument about character difficulty because I find those very pointless for 3 reasons. 1, I believe in any video game with distinct, unique characters or abilities or what have you, that at the top level of that game, every character is hard to play. Number 2, I think looking down upon a character and insulting the players who play them because the character's easy is extremely stupid. Same thing with revering players and revering characters that are harder is also dumb. And 3, no matter the difficulty of a character, a top player of a fighting game, and a game in general, but a fighting game especially, is going to optimize their character no matter what. For example, if a character has an extremely easy 0 to death, the top player is going to learn it. If the character has an extremely hard 0 to death, the top player is going to learn it. Next in line is going to be Ryu. I don't think Ryu is worse than Ken in every aspect. I think he's actually better in some aspects. In a lot of aspects, actually. But I think Ken is better where it matters. So I should start off with his positives first. All 3 of Ryu's fireballs are objectively better than Ken's. The slower travel and the multi-hit allows you to keep up with them better, especially the buff that they got. They have more shield stun, and they beat out certain moves that they didn't before. His kill power is obviously better. I don't think it's like a huge margin that everyone states. I think that's a bit exaggerated, but it is better with Tatsu and his Shoryuken. And his shield break setups are significantly better than Ken's. His Shoryuken is not only better because of power, but also because it's only 1 hit, so it cannot be fallen out of or SDI'd. Now, I just stated a lot of things, so that might seem weird that he's below Ken, but Ken is the faster character. And I think that is almost all that matters. All of the fighting game characters have a general weakness of being camped out by zoners, but Ryu is by far the worst at it out of all of them just because he's so slow. Ken's Tatsu is better for shield pressure due to the multi-hits. Mobility is so important in today's meta. You either have to have mobility or something that lets you get around not being mobile, which very few characters have because it takes a lot to get over that hump. Next up, we're going to have Mewtwo. I think Mewtwo is the worst charge shot character in the game, which is funny because his charge shot is actually very good. I think Shadow Ball is a very good move. He doesn't have multiple good projectiles like Mii Gunner. He doesn't have broken ledge trapping like Samus. And all he really has is a surprising amount of power to him. His forward throw recently got buffed and is incredible. It's always been good, but now it's even better at racking up damage when you can't get any combos anymore off of down throw. His forward tilt is very good at killing at the edge when ledge trapping. His up smash is very good, very fast, and it combos out of nair. You are absolutely crazy if you think his tail should be a disjoint. That would be absolutely awful. Every character in this game that has a tail, some part of it is a hurtbox. But the problem with the tail is the way that it flails around. It moves really weird, and that tends to be a result of hurtbox shuffling a lot. And I guess a better term than hurtbox shuffling would be unit collision. I think the unit collision is something that is a general complaint of mine about this game. If you're not aware of what that is, unit collision is when certain moves and certain attacks don't hit when they really look like they should. For example, if I'm quite literally running into a character's body and I dash grab and my grab doesn't land because of the way that like a character places their foot or like a weird animation they have, that's unit collision. And it happens in the air a lot as well. And I think that happens a lot with Mewtwo out of his favor, where his tail is flailing around in some weird place, so he's getting Captain Falcon up smashed from when there's like a clear amount of distance between the characters, and stuff like that is what makes his tail so bad. But I think even worse than his tail is his floatiness. His disadvantage is abysmal. Although his recovery is decent, he struggles at landing because he doesn't have good landing options. You kind of have to do down air, which is very committal, or teleport down, which is very laggy, and you don't have access to fast fall air dodge because you're a floaty. And I don't think his strengths quite make up for this, which is why I don't think he's solo viable. One of the last two characters, I believe, in this tier is going to be Falco. Falco has surprisingly exploded in popularity recently. Toda has gotten 9th at multiple majors, I believe, that he's attended. And it seems like he's managing to exploit the fact that Falco has not been a relevant pick until now in the meta. And that's not necessarily making an excuse for him, but I do think it's going to get harder for him down the line. Everyone knows that the character has a top 6 advantage state in the game. They get a hit and they take it to the max. But the thing is that a lot of characters are starting to do that now. They're starting to do not as much damage as him, but close to it. The meta of Smash Ultimate has kind of been transitioned to a very campy and a very slow neutral, and whoever gets the first hit, they take it all the way. Falco is good at taking it all the way, but he's not good at winning neutral. When there are characters like Diddy Kong who have slightly worse combos, but their neutral's a lot better, so I value him more than Falco. And his ground movement speed is abysmal. A lot of his combo starters are very close up, and he doesn't have many disjoints. And he doesn't have the great ways to get out of juggling like Fox and Wolf do, because they both have access to fast fall nair and fast fall air dodge, when Falco doesn't really have that. So if I see more Falcos doing better and more of Tilde's performance in the future doing well consistently, he could definitely move up to solo viable, but for now he's going to be right on the edge. With Rosalina. I believe Rosalina is one of the hardest characters in the game. I'm very surprised DeBuzz does as well as he does. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Say that 5 times fast. I'm very surprised DeBuzz does as well as he does. Okay, anyways, I think she loses to most sword characters. And I think she loses to characters that can swat with like a couple moves and put Luma into tumble and defeat her instantly, which are a lot of top tiers, but her overall strengths of juggling and neutral with Luma allow her to get past some of those matchups if the pilot of the character is correct, as we've seen through Busby, King of New York. I think Rosalina is fitting to be at this very edge because I do think she is almost right there in solo viability of getting top 8 at majors. I think she's very, very close, but she's just not quite unless we see some more optimization from her. But for now, they seem like they're kind of stagnating and they're losing to a lot of DLC characters. So we'll see what Rosa's future is like, but hopefully it goes up because I think this character is one of the most uniquely designed characters in all of Smash. Actually, I think we have one more character in Viable with Pockets that I forgot. And that character is going to be Wii Fit Trainer. I think Wii Fit Trainer is probably about here. I think this character has a lot going for her, but she has one fatal flaw, which I think is going to hold her back from going higher in the game's meta, which is she is awful against short characters. A lot of her moves hit very, very high, and she's a very tall character, and she doesn't have a lot of moves that hit the ground, and there are a lot of short characters in the meta right now. Diddy Kong, Pikachu, Joker, Game & Watch, these characters all do very well against her. I don't think she can survive any bracket she's given, and I think she needs some secondaries for bad matchups, hence putting her in this tier. I feel like it's almost a waste talking about deep breathing. It's one of the best mechanics in the game. It's better than Limit. It's easily twice as good as Limit, if not better. If Wii Fit is getting deep breathing in tournament,
what is going to guarantee that they're not going to get camped out for the duration of it? They're just going to be throwing suns and soccer balls. And if that's all you're getting out of your deep breathing, that's not a good matchup, and you might not win that match. The character is surprisingly good at planking, even though I don't think planking really exists in this game outside of one specific character. I think the character does it surprisingly well in a game that punishes ledge grabbing so much the way it does. But I still don't think that's a viable strategy, because if you don't have the lead, then they just don't have to approach you. And I feel like this might be weird to clarify now because I've mentioned tournaments so much, but I will say that I am someone who values tournaments very, very little. I like looking at what a character can do and imagining in my head what is possible with the character. I don't think that Smash is big enough of a competitive game to where we can accurately say this tournament result equals this placement on the tier list. I don't think that's realistic, because if we're doing that, then Byleth is the best character of the game and loses no matchups. And I can tell you right now that Byleth loses matchups. So I don't like to look at tournament results as a determiner of a character being good. But that being said, if you are a true competitor, I believe that you will pick what you think can win. And it's not that Wii Fit can't win, it's that there are better options. And it definitely might seem hypocritical because I've mentioned tournaments so much, but a lot of like these characters, no one's really playing them for a reason. They're just not that good. Not these characters. I'd say anything down here is not being played much just because it's not that good. It's not that worth it. So I'm not saying they're bad because they're not placing well at tournaments. I'm saying they're not placing well at tournaments because they're bad. And we'll see that when I get higher in the tier list. I'm going to be mentioning tournaments a lot less, because this is where I start to really believe and understand what characters can do in my own head and in practice. And that will be a lot more of a determiner of how much I value them than what placing they're getting. So now that we've finished out Viable with Pockets, we can move on to Solo Viable. Can get top 8 at major tournaments solo, can win a major as well, but might need secondaries to break that barrier. Less consistent than the tier above. Who should start off Solo Viable for us? As I place the first characters I think belong here, I'm going to state that I think this is the tier that is probably subject to the most switching of individual character placements when I'm done with it. So I'm kind of going to put characters how I think they place individually along the way, but at the end when I go to Super Viable, it might significantly differ than how it started. But going on, we're going to start off with the Pits. So if I will say I think Pit is better than Dark Pit, I think his side B is better, I think his arrows are better, and I think that's enough to put him over him just by a little bit. The best way I can describe the Pits are Jack of all trades, master of none. Their recovery is pretty decent, but it can sometimes be exploited. Their combos are pretty good, but they're not too long, and they don't do that much damage, but they still have them. Their throws are good, they have killing forward throws, as well as combo throws at low percents. They have some of the fastest smash attacks in the game with how strong they are, but of course, the nature of smash attacks are that they're inherently riskier. Their disadvantage isn't the worst with landing in air, but it isn't the best either. And their killing is pretty decent. They have a few kill combos like up tilt up air, and raw kill moves like back air and forward tilt at the edge. But just like Marth, I think they get outclassed by Lucina in every way. The Pits are similar to Lucina due to how honest they are of characters. And not honest in the sense that they're, a completely skilled, if you win, you're just the better player, because they definitely have their cheese and their stupid stuff as well. Honest in the sense that they don't have like an Arsene, or like a Go Meter, or like a One Wing Angel. They don't have that type of crazy factor that, a lot of DLCs have. They just have a solid set of tools, and you have them, and you do what you want with them. But Lucina's set of tools are just better. Bowser's going to be next up here. He will make a 20-second stock out of any character in this game. Any character, if he gets the right opening. But is that a solid game plan and a solid thing to rely on when you want to win a tournament set? Absolutely not. Thankfully, he has consistency as well. Flame Breath, an incredible move. It's plus on shield. It does an incredible amount of damage. He has a frame 6 command grab that you can use to get off the ledge and out of shield. He has a frame 6 up B out of shield, one of the best up Bs in the game for that reason only. He has fantastic aerials that kill ludicrously early. His forward tilt is one of the best forward tilts in the game. It 2 frames and kills most characters are like 80. And although he has very predictable landing because he's either going to be doing down B, down air, or nothing, top players are still getting hit by it. So the scare factor with this character is really, really there. This character is terrifying to play against. This character can put pressure on you, this character can blow you up. But at the end of the day, I believe it's up to you to not let that happen. But I do think that the consistency is there with his other options that allow him to be put in solo viable above these characters. Leon is honestly an incredible player. He's basically the only top player making Bowser work, the only top player playing him, and he's definitely able to cause some upsets, a strength of the player and the character combined. Bowser is very good and not to be slept on. He's probably the best traditional heavy in the game. Now this is where things get difficult because I could argue so many of these characters being in different individual positions and I don't know who's next. But just looking at this for now, I think I'm going to put Core in here. I was viewing her through a Smash 4 lens too often, and just constantly complaining about the fact that she was too slow, when I think she has a lot of things to get around that. All her aerials are extremely good. They all either combo or kill, which is a very good set of aerials to have. You never have a useless aerial. Sometimes she'll just be able to forward air Dragon Fan you at 60 and you die. And the biggest reason I put her up here, something that I value a lot more now that I've started doing it and started learning how to react, is her ledge trapping. This character's ledge trapping is cheating. The character's ledge trapping almost does itself. It's simply because of Pin. Even though Pin is not the monster it was in Smash 4, Pin forces them to get off the ledge after a certain point because it kills so early if you get the tip of it. But they're so worried about getting hit by it that they're hesitating. So it's like a Ouroboros pin, I guess you could call it, where they want to do an option to get away from the pin, but they're so scared of the pin and that they're going to roll into something else that they just don't do anything. So it's like a ticking time bomb on the edge, and eventually you're just going to kill them at like 7. And that quick option is often going to be a panic option in the terms of roll or jump, which are very easy to cover, and if they do a normal get up or a get up attack, they're still in the corner. And even though ledge trapping is different from being in the corner is still a form of disadvantage for them. That being said, I don't think it's fair to completely look over her weaknesses. The character is still very slow both in the ground and in the air. And I would say this character is not any higher than this, and I don't think they will go any higher than this for one reason only, and that is because this character right here. There is quite literally no reason to play Corrin when you have Pyramithra right there. And that's what we saw Cosmos do. Full-time Corrin main, or, Corrin Inkling Pikachu Tri-main into a full-time Aegis main, and now he's doing very well. This character is just a strictly worse Pyramithra, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. I think they can still be played if you find them fun. I think they still have their own place in the meta, and they have very distinct strengths. But apart from that, this character should not be slept on. She's been called a low tier for most of this game's lifespan, and people are only now realizing that she's not. After Corrin, I think this is about time we get to Luigi. Luigi is very weird, because when looking at the character's strengths and flaws on paper, it looks like the flaws heavily outweigh the strengths. I think he has the worst air mobility in the entire game, one of the worst recoveries in the entire game, which is absolutely not exploited enough. I'll die on that hill that people are not good at edgeguarding this character, even now that Elegant is doing so well. Elegant is a monster, by the way. Incredible player. And I am very happy that he's doing as well as he does. He's getting top 3, top 4, top 7 in majors. He's getting consistent results with one of the most inconsistent characters in the game. Luigi's main problem lies in how terribly designed he is, where if you get in this character's face and you get into his grab range, you lose. If you camp him out, for the most part, he cannot do anything. I was actually able to talk to Elegant recently, and he said that he actually enjoys when people camp him. He says it gives him more time to think about his game plan, and it lets him crumble faster, simply because of the mental energy that camping takes. And even though you can camp him out, it still takes an extreme zoner character like Samus to be able to actually win while camping. Most characters, they get the lead and they hold it. But a character like Samus against Luigi, she gets the lead and she furthers it while she's camping. And that's where Luigi truly looks like a terrible character. But aside from niche matchups like that, I think he can come back from those deficits as long as the Luigi plays patient enough. All his moves have very fast and very good frame data. They send at very good angles, which lead to combos. You have soft air down B, you have down air down B, you have down air up B, you have an air back air, you have so many kill confirms that you can get at so many different percents. He has 2 kill throws, I believe, in back throw and up throw. I don't know how good up throw is, but I know back throw is very strong. And the character just has a touch of death whenever he gets the opportunity to. One thing that I'm really excited to see is how Elegant will fare against Japan as a region, because Japan is for those who might not know, Japan is a lot campier of a region. They give each other a lot of more space, and they're willing to camp you out. And that's the situation like I just described, where Luigi struggles most. And on that note, Elegant at Summit is probably going to be my most anticipated storyline for Smash Ultimate this year. I cannot wait to see how he does, and I think he could cause some real problems, and truly make a name for himself, because he definitely deserves it. I think Ken is going to follow closely behind Luigi. I don't see much need to talk about Ken, as I kind of talked about him a bit with Ryu. But just to repeat, the mobility is something that I value a lot more. Yet again, his fireballs, his Hadoukens are significantly worse. His Shoryuken is technically worse because it kills, not only does it kill less early, but it's a multi-hit, so the opponent can SDI out of it or even fall out of it without meaning to. I don't think there's much to talk about these two in general, just because they are Echo Fighters, they're so similar. But I think when it comes to Terry and Kazuya, those are the fighting game characters that are really different, and is what makes them both a lot better than these two in my opinion, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Next up is going to go Mii Brawler. This character is being explored and is very highly valued by very specific top players, specifically Larry Lur and Esam. They both have pocket Mii Brawlers, and they both believe that the character might even be top tier. I don't believe that the potential for cheese kills at 40 on Yoshi's story is going to make a character go over the edge into top tier. You need more than that to be in the upper echelon of characters. And I don't think Mii Brawler quite has that. But I personally believe the best thing about Mii Brawler is being able to switch variants between sets. It allows you to counterplay your opponent more, counterplay their character, counterplay their playstyle, and I don't think people do it enough. People tend to stick to their dedicated custom loadout. I believe his Nair is one of the only aerials that combos while rising, and his up air is very good for covering space and comboing into itself. But his base stats aren't quite good enough to make him comparable to a character like Fox, in my opinion, where I see it as kind of like a Marth Lucina situation here, where he's just a worse Fox, and I would value Fox a lot more than him. I think it's very clear that Fox's neutral is significantly better. But Mii Brawler is definitely a character I know pretty little about, along with another character who I do think is better than him, and that is going to be Mii Gunner. Mii Gunner is one of the best zoners in the game, and when I say that, I mean one of the best characters at doing the active zoning, of not interacting, of camping, doing the active zoning. Mii Gunner is one of the best. All the variants of their projectiles are very good. They all have the ability to auto-cancel, roke and ledge trapping, very good range with forward air, very good frame data with a surprisingly fast up tilt that I believe is frame 5 and kills, which is a very good out of shoot option. That kills, by the way. But I don't believe the close quarter combat fighting is quite there to be comparable to someone like Pac-Man, who I think they're a better zoner than Pac-Man, but I think Pac-Man's a better character than them, if that makes sense. Ness is going to be the next character up. We've known about Ness's weaknesses for a million years. We've known the formula that happens every single game. Ness is very good. He has a couple moves that are extremely stupid and people don't know how to counterplay them. So in the first year or two of a game's life, he does very well and he places very well. Suddenly, the counterplay starts happening, Ness players start struggling, and then the character just falls off the face of the planet. Ness is by far the most well-rounded he's ever been. His recovery, while still being exploitable, is the best it's ever been. Untechables at extremely early percents, like 45. Ness's punish game reminds me of Steve's in a way, where the Ness players are optimizing their punish game every single day, and he's getting scarier and scarier. His character is landing one PK Fire, landing one Psy Magnet Nair, and doing 80 and if not killing you. This character has infinite combos. Psy Magnet has set knockback, which is one of the most broken things you can ask for in Smash. Set knockback basically means that no matter what percent the opponent is at, the move will send them a certain distance, no matter what. Ness has double jump cancel Psy Magnet across the stage into footstool turnaround Psy Magnet across the stage and rinse and repeat, and it's quite literally an infinite on a large majority of the cast. We haven't seen any Ness players optimize this in tournament as far as I'm aware, whether it be them not attempting it because the combo is very difficult, or them not wanting to because it might get patched out. If we start seeing these combos get optimized and used in tournament, this character is one to watch out for. Ike is going to be, after Ness, a character that has definitely fallen off a bit. Parrying is very effective against him, because his Nair is not nearly as good as people thought. The character is very linear. He becomes predictable if you're not mixing up your options. I do think the character's recovery is actually very good. I think side B is almost unpunishable if he recovers high. At the beginning of this game's life, people weren't really sure if parrying was going to become a main facet of what top players need to learn because it's so different than power shielding in previous games. But now people have gotten so good at it that parrying is an integral part of a lot of people's game plans, and it shuts down a lot of characters. And for those who don't know, the reason that parrying was so in question at first was because in previous Smash games, to power shield, you would have to put your shield up at the perfect moment. And if you got it, you could power shield it. But in this game, you have to drop your shield at the perfect moment, and you'll get a parry if it's within 4 frames of dropping your shield. And that's actually what makes zoners so good in this game, because there's an inherent risk to parrying because you're dropping your shield. So if you miss it, you're going to get hit. Whereas if you miss a power shield, you'll still be shielding. You won't get the punish, but you'll still be shielding, which is what made zoners such a force to be reckoned with in this game. But aside from that mini Smash history lesson, the character requires a lot of adaptation to not get predictable, which is very hard to do in a tournament environment, much like Snake, but he just naturally has a lot less options than Snake, so therefore justifying putting him right here. I think Byleth is going to be up next. The character has definitely become one of the talks of the town now that the best player in the world is destroying everyone with what used to be considered a low tier. But the stuff that I'm seeing more and more, I have to give in, and I have to put her somewhere around here. And I will say that I still do not think the character is this good. I think Leo is just that different, but I cannot argue with someone who quite literally wins every single major. And if a character like this can do it, that just shows how balanced this game is. This character is a slug, so slow in the air and in the ground. But thankfully, they do definitely have things to make up for that, I won't lie. Their Nair is one of the best in the game. The ability to fast fall it during any point of the move and having an Earthquake hitbox makes parrying a lot harder against this character and it allows for more mix-ups. I think Tweak said it best. This character is like Fire Emblem Ganondorf. You are dying in the dumbest ways multiple times a game. Byleth's up B might be the best move in the game at exploiting linear recoveries, especially because it has a random untechable mechanic built into it. A lot of people think that this character is just like a low tier winning in the hands of MKLeo, but this character was significantly buffed during quarantine. And a lot of people even forgot that they got buffed. So we're actually seeing a significantly buffed character doing well rather than just a low tier. The two biggest buffs for the character, in my opinion, being the decreased startup for the up B along with the higher launch distance, as well as the ending lag for the aerial side B, which is what allows them to stall the ledge so well. I quite literally cannot put them in any tier lower than solo viable because Leo is doing exactly this. He's getting top 8 at majors, he's winning the majors as well, but he does use some secondaries. He's not going to use Byleth against Esam's Pikachu, he's not going to use Byleth against Min Min, but apart from that, he's pretty much going solo Byleth and winning majors. But if I was doing the typical SAB or top tier, high tier, mid tier, I still would put this character in mid tier to be honest. I think there are a lot of characters better than her, but with this new ranking, solo viable is where she has to go. Next up is going to be the hypest character in the game, Captain Falcon. I think Captain Falcon is probably one of my top 5 most hated characters to fight against. He's up there with Terry and a couple others. Simply because this character's explosive options are so overwhelming. Things like side B spot dodge, side B jab, up smash spot dodge, spamming up B at kill percent. Things like up smash and Raptor Boost feel so frustrating to play against for many reasons. Raptor Boost cannot be punished with grab because of the fact that it sends you back a little bit. Up smash, which is a double hit up smash that kills at like 70, is almost unpunishable as well. Like the move is absurdly strong. This character has gotten buffed 4 out of the 6 of the last patches, which is ridiculous. And people don't seem to realize just how important it was that tech checking was taken away, because tech checking was how a lot of characters that have lackluster edge guarding managed to edge guard him. And now that that mechanic is gone, a lot of characters simply can't edge guard him. And they resort to ledge trapping, yes, but his recovery is the best it's ever been in any Smash game. Next up is going to be Hero. I think this might be one of my more controversial picks. I think people would be very surprised to see Hero this high up. But I think his RNG is overstated extremely. I think it's highly exaggerated in the sense that people think, oh, well, if Hero gets all his good spells and his good moves, then he's high tier. But I really think that when Hero gets average RNG, he's high tier. And when he gets all of his best moves, he's top 5. I think this character has significantly more good spells than bad ones. As we saw, I believe, I'm going to butcher this, but I believe his name is Akakitsu in Japan. He is showing what this character can do. Akakitsu really showed me what the character can do, because before then I didn't really have a big understanding of the character. His up B out of shield while not comboing or doing a lot of damage is a very good get off B tool, which I didn't think he had before that. I didn't even know up B was a good out of shield option. And he has one of the best recoveries in the game in my opinion, just because Zoom is so common, and even if you don't get Zoom, if you get Accelerauto, you're getting off the corner free. And his up B is pretty good too. And of course you might get crit at 40 and die. If this character gets Psych Up and Oomph, all his moves are one-hit shield breaks. The character is surprisingly consistent for being so based around RNG. Next up is going to be Steve, a character that has recently fallen under many people's S tier. But just to be completely honest, none of the Steve Twitter combos impress me. These incredibly hard 0 deaths that seem to be pretty unoptimal and very hard to hit in a tournament environment don't really impress me, and they don't change my placement of the tier list. This character's bad matchups are absolutely not given enough credit. This character gets destroyed, like it's quite pitiful to be honest. Destroyed by the Final Fantasy characters, Cloud and Sephiroth. I would imagine Lucina does well. I think Wolf does very well. I think this character loses a lot more matchups than people let on. And although I value consistency a bit more than explosiveness, a character like Kazuya is going to be naturally higher because I think he's a lot more explosive than Steve. But I think the counterplay's just not been developed yet, and I think this character is a lot worse offline, or it's not even an I think, it's pretty objective. People were saying that Steve's side B is the best side B in the game, the minecart, and that it's his best move. People are not getting hit by that move offline anymore. I believe it's probably in his bottom half of moves, and it's not nearly as good as people thought, and that's purely because of online. Overall, I definitely have a lot less faith in this character than most. I think Yoshi is going to go next. And yet again, I don't know if I think Yoshi is better than Steve, but I'm going to rearrange it at the end of this section to see what I really think. But I value Yoshi a lot. Yoshidora is obviously a phenomenal player. He is definitely a consistent player in Japan, and being consistent in Japan is very hard because the skill gaps of players is not as big as it is in any other region. I think the top players of Japan are clearly Zachary, T, Proto, Ken, Shuton, I believe, something in that order. But even they can get upset at tournaments in Japan because of how good the region is overall. I would say this character almost has it all. He has a free way to get out of combos with frame 1 out being his double jump armor. He has one of the best out of shield options in the game with Nair. He has very easy to execute, very high damaging combos with forward tilt, upper, upper. His recovery is uncontestable by most characters, apart from a very set few like Zero Suit. And I think the only thing this character lacks is grab combos. but the other stuff is so good that you almost don't need grab combos. So it's not even that much of a weakness. And I would say the one other thing is the inherent stubbiness and the lack of disjoints. I think he can struggle against swords a lot. Fighter Pass 2 was very hard on Yoshi. Sephiroth, Aegis, Min Min, I think all three of those beat Yoshi pretty badly. And if you look on the right side of the screen, we have a lot of sword characters left, so I don't think he has the best top tier matchup spread, which prevents him from being further up. Next up, we're going to have Cloud. Cloud is a weird case because he's a character that didn't see the light of day at the beginning of Smash Ultimate because he was clearly a shell of his former Smash 4 self. I think the same thing happened with Sheik, the same thing happened with Diddy Kong, but with Cloud especially. The character's recovery is bottom 10, don't get me wrong, there's no doubt about that, but Cloud is here because his movement speed, his air drift are surprisingly good, especially his ground movement speed is very good. Limit doesn't last as long, but I value using Limit for the movement speed and the stat buffs over burning it pretty much every single time. He has one of the best disjoints in the game with his Buster Sword. Back air is incredible, forward air is incredible, up air is very good for juggling. He has some combos into finishing touch now ever since the startup was reduced by 1 frame, which just shows how important frame data really is. 1 frame can change everything. And finally, and I think the biggest thing is, his kit is very good at beating zoners. I'm pretty sure he beats every zoner in the game. Like, he might not beat Snake, but apart from that, I think he beats every single zoner in the game. Greninja's going to be next here. I'm going to explain Greninja very similarly how I did in the last tier list because I don't think much has changed for the character. He's basically a game of rock, paper, scissors. He has 3 main things he wants in neutral. Dash attack to whiff punish you, forward air to zone you out, or grab because you were trying to shield the other 2 options. Thankfully, his grab is very bad. I believe it is frame 9 and it doesn't have any combo follow-ups, and it's very bad out of shield. I think what holds Greninja from being super viable is his out of shield option. His fastest option is a frame 12 grab, because it's 4 extra frames when you grab out of shield. But besides that, his game plan is still very good because his counter is one of the best in the game. He's a top 5 whiff punisher for sure. He's very good at weaving in and out of your burst ranges and punishing you for it. I think people could get better at punishing his side B recovery. If Greninja side Bs to the stage and it hits your shield, he cannot grab the ledge and you can just run off down air as most characters before you can up B. Time will tell where this character goes in the meta, but I think they are basically solidified in high tier for the rest of this game's life. Next up, in my opinion, the most nerfed character in Smash Ultimate, Min Min. These recent changes were crazy. Since it's been quite a bit since my last tier list, you guys might not think that she fell off that much compared to that, but in the time that I wasn't making any tier lists and waiting for the final patch to come out, I had her in my top 10 and sometimes in my top 5, depending on how I felt. I thought this character was ridiculous and one of the best characters in the game for sure. She took a huge drop. Her Nair got 4 frames of increased end lag. That's one of the biggest aerial frame nerfs in the game. 4 frames is huge, and it makes her landing even more abysmal than it already was. It was okay because her Nair was so good. Her Nair was one of the best Nairs in the game, in my opinion, but now her landing is genuinely awful. She has a bottom 3 air drift. All of her smash attacks do less damage to shields, and her dragon laser is not as active as it used to be, which is definitely the least important nerf. The biggest one by far is the Nair change. I think if everything else was changed but it wasn't Nair, I think she would still be into super viable, but at the very end of it. But that Nair change was just too much. Matchups like Fox used to be even in my opinion, now Fox definitely wins. Matchups like Bayonetta used to be even, now Bayonetta definitely wins. A lot of even matchups became bad, and a lot of bad matchups became worse. Despite all of this negativity that I'm talking about regarding the character, she still is one of the best counterpick characters in the game, no doubt about that. She will take care of pretty much all of these matchups, besides a key few like I mentioned, like Bayonetta, etc., for you. She still dominates a lot of the cast off stage. She's still 2-framing and ledge trapping and edge guarding and winning neutral at the same exact time. But in areas where she struggles and she's getting comboed and her disadvantage, they're even worse now. I think her biggest weakness is not actually landing, I think it's getting ledge trapped. Min Min has the worst ledge hang in the game, and she has the worst ledge jump in the game. Her ledge hang is bad because she can be hit by a lot of moves because she hangs so close to the ledge, and her ledge jump is so bad because as she's jumping, she kind of like springs herself off of her arm. So even though she's quite literally jumping away, her arm is still attached to the ledge, and you can just hit that. Of course, this character's not terrible, they're not garbage or anything like that, but they're definitely a fraction of what they once were. Next up is going to be the Flat Man himself, Game & Watch. I think Game & Watch has one of the best overall move sets in the game. I think he has one bad move, which is up tilt. He has the best down smash in the game. He has one of the best nairs in the game. He has one of the best up airs in the game. He has one of the best up smashes in the game. And he has one of the best forward smashes in the game. And those are all moves that are used a lot, and they're pretty lagless, or they're very ambiguous due to his 2D nature. He doesn't have a lot of animation, so it's hard to punish him for things. Meister is obviously a phenomenal player. Meister takes this character so far, where sometimes getting 80% comboed is the bare minimum versus Meister. That's Meister on a bad day, taking 80% from one Nair. It's ridiculous how far he pushes his advantage state, and he's clearly levels beyond levels better than every other Game & Watch, simply for his advantage state. That being said, I don't think this character is in super viable, despite Meister performing so well. I think to win a major, Game & Watch is going to need pockets. This character loses in a lot more matchups than people give him credit for. He struggles a lot with disjoints and characters that can destroy bomb quickly and easily and can wall out the rest of his moves. Just to name a few, I think he loses to Cloud, Byleth, Corrin, Pyramithra, Shulk, Sephiroth, Chrom. As you see, he loses to a lot of sword characters. Oh, Ike, sorry. He loses to a lot of sword characters. He might even lose to Hero. But this being said, he does very well pretty much against everything else. He beats Fox, he beats Peach, he beats Pikachu, he beats most characters that don't have swords. I think Meister is the one to show off that no matter how bad the matchup is, if you get those 3 advantage states and you turn them into 3 stock stolen, you win the game. His advantage state is so strong that I think he's able to overcome those matchups, but by no means does he win those matchups. I think he can just overcome them, which is why he's this high up. Young Link is going to be the next character up. I'm very surprised this character fell off as hard as he did. I think the character is relatively easy to pick up and grasp. I think he has a lot of good options. He has very good projectiles. He has very good combos. He probably has the most kill confirms in the game. It's either him or Sheik. Those are the clear top 2. A character like Young Link is where we start to get into the area of zoners that are able to fight and they have close quarter combat abilities. This character is throwing fire arrows and boomerangs and bombs at you from across the screen, and then you get to his face and he does a frame 4 nair on you. His nair is as fast as Fox's. And also, he just loses to stats. I think he loses to most characters that I'm going to be putting in super viable. They're slight losses, don't get me wrong, but a lot of these characters are very popular. If you lose to Palutena, that's a bad sign. Palutena is one of the most popular characters in the meta. If you lose to Wolf, that's a very bad sign. If you lose to Rob, very bad sign. Those 3 characters are like the reality checks of the game. If you lose to those 3 characters, then you might not be able to crack top 8 at these majors because they're very, very common. After Young Link, we're gonna have Mega Man. I think I value Mega Man a little bit less now because I started playing him for fun, and I did not realize how abysmal this character's disadvantage is. Mega Man has the worst disadvantage in the game, apart from the heavies. Like, I think it's all the heavy characters, for obvious reasons, and then Mega Man. And his only landing option is Leaf Shield, which is not good enough to stop him from being juggled by a lot of characters. His recovery is very specific in how you have to snap the ledge, and there are some instances where you get launched at a certain angle, and you quite literally cannot snap to the ledge. So you have to do an early up B and then air dodge into the stage, which is one of the worst options you can do. I think this character has his place in the meta. He beats Snake, he beats Peach in my opinion. That might be a hot take, but I think he beats Peach. I think he beats Joker still. He could even do well against Wario. But overall, his disadvantage is too abysmal for me to justify putting him in super viable. So I think he's going to be at the very cutting edge of solo viable. And we are getting to the end of this section soon. I think this cutoff has to be very clear and defined, so I don't know who I should end it with, and I don't know who I should start the next tier with. So I'm thinking about that now. I believe Kazuya is going to be next. For those who don't know, in Smash Ultimate, there is a universal jump squat of 3 frames, meaning that when you press the jump button, the little animation that your character does, of like when they like crouch and they have to spring themselves up, is 3 frames long for every character in the game. Kazuya's is 6 frames long, which I believe to be an homage to Tekken because jump squats are awful in Tekken, but you're not supposed to jump in that game for the most part. His projectile is very mediocre, and he has a lot of invincibility on a lot of his moves, like his dash and his electric, but it's all committal invincibility. All the moves, they dash him forward, which is not always what you want in a meta that we're currently in. With how important neutral is, Kazuya really struggles against a lot of characters. And almost the entire design of the character is to get that one hit and take a stock with it. Like, you should be doing that every single time if robots were playing the game, but we're human. These things are going to get messed up, and I think he's a pretty bad tournament character. This character seems very stressful to play. I'm surprised Riddles does as well as he does. The fact that he was hitting such precise combos at Smash Summit, the biggest Smash pot ever, and the first COVID offline major back, was very surprising to me, and I'm very impressed by how he does with the character. Although I think he definitely favors Terry, which, you know, spoilers is coming up soon. I do think Terry's better than Kazuya, but we'll save that for later. His recovery is pretty decent. I don't think it's anything that can really be spiked or exploited too badly because of the giant hitbox it has, and it also serves well as an attacking move. It seems to be very detrimental when you mess up these combos because you could be quite literally losing an entire stock's worth of damage or even a game or a match or a set or a tournament for missing one combo because getting in is so hard, but once you get in, it's like 2 interactions and you're dead from this character, which makes him very scary but pretty inconsistent, which is why I favor characters like Terry more than him, but I still favor him more than Ken and Ryu just because his explosiveness is he's probably the most explosive character in the game. Except Snake, of course. Ha! Got him, up top. Next up, we're going to have a slight demotion from my last tier list, Olimar. Like I've said many times before already, Olimar got heavily punished through Fighter Pass 2. Sephiroth, Pyramithra, they both do very well against him, especially Pyramithra, and Pyramithra is probably the most common character in the meta today. Having a bad matchup against them is worse than having a bad matchup against Palu in this current meta. That being said, the Olimar players, being Myron, Dabuz, and Shuton obviously, they understand his flowcharts and his game plan so well that they manage to overcome a lot of bad matchups. And I'm just going to be blunt. When Olimar has 3 purple Pikmin, he's top 5. He might be the best character in the game when he has 3 purple Pikmin. So it takes him a while to ramp up during a match, but I do think he gets better as the game goes on due to getting better Pikmin and getting flowers on his Pikmin as well. But for now, I can't really see this character solo winning a major like I used to. I think he needs a little bit of help to overcome those bad matchups. An abysmal disadvantage also lets this character get exploited off stage. This character can get swatted out very well if he's not getting his win conditions. If he's not getting grabs when he has blue Pikmin, if he's not getting smash attacks when he has red Pikmin, if he's not getting anything when he has purple Pikmin, if he's not getting the white Pikmin on you to do extra damage, the character can fall apart very quickly. But when all of that comes together, there's no character quite like him. Next up, I'm going to put Terry Bogard. I think Terry finds himself more bunched up with Ken and Ryu than he does with Kazuya, just because Kazuya is so unique. So instead of that, I'm going to explain what he has over Ken and Ryu. And it's mainly 2 things. And one of them you might think is Go Meter. It's not. I have talked to many Ken and Ryu mains, and I've heard many of them, like Hazmat, say things, and they say that they do not care about Go Meter. If they had to pick something from Terry to put onto their character, Go Meter would be one of their last options, because these characters don't struggle with killing. They don't need the Go Meter. Terry's grab is absolutely ridiculous. His grab is phenomenal. His dash grab is one of the best in the game for some random reason. It has extremely good range, it comes out pretty fast, and he has combo throws. His dash attack is one of the best dash attacks in the game. It kills, it's fast, it crosses up. Ken and Ryu's dash attacks are basically useless. Same thing with Kazuya's. These 3 characters, their dash attacks are... they're all lined up. I didn't even mean to do that. These 3 characters' dash attacks are basically useless. So are pretty much all of their grabs except Kazuya, mainly because of Dragon Rage. But Terry has 2 moves that are significantly better at their uses than these 3 have. But his grab, his dash attack, and one more thing, his crack shoot. His crack shoot helps him from getting camped and zoned out so much to the point where it's not even nearly as bad as a weakness as it is for the other 3. That quick burst of range, that quick burst of speed and mobility that he has with crack shoot, not only on the ground but in recovering, helps him with so many more matchups, and it really puts him over the edge of these 3 in my opinion. Because Kazuya definitely has higher peaks. I think Ken and Ryu have higher peaks than Terry, but the consistency there is what puts him over the edge. This character's recovery is not nearly as bad as people say. If you send Terry vertically up at all when you're knocking him off stage, he's going to get back, or you're going to have to try to edgeguard him. And you can rinse and repeat edgeguard him, but 1, he's very heavy, so you're going to have to do it until he dies. You're not going to really gimp him. And second, all of his recovering moves have hitboxes. Power Dunk, Crack Shoot, Burn Knuckle, and Rising Tackle all have incredible hitboxes that help him from being edgeguarded. This character's horizontal recovery is incredible, and his vertical recovery is not nearly as bad as people say. Although I despise fighting this character so much, I think he's one of the most well-rounded characters in the game. The third to last character that's going to be in this tier, Chrom. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that Roy will inevitably be significantly higher than Chrom, for the sole purpose of his recovery. That is quite literally it. If Chrom had Roy's recovery, or just had a better recovery in general, he'd be top 5 in the game. He'd be the best sword character in the game by far. Chrom is better than Roy in a lot of aspects simply because of his consistent blade. Unlike Roy, who has hilt attacks, Chrom's blade is consistent throughout and always does the same amount of damage, which leads to him being more consistent in the combo area, in the killing area, in the edge guarding area, in the ledge trapping area, but his recovery is just abysmal. It's one of the worst in the game. Any moves that push you, like water moves or a splatter shot from Inkling, will just kill him. You can even hit him as he's coming up with a fast disjoint, or even just a fast move in general, before his sword starts to swing. Chrom has some of the deadliest combos in the entire game. They're much better than Roy's and they're much deadlier simply because you're never going to drop out of any of his combos, or the combos aren't going to finish because you didn't get the sweet spot when you needed it. It's always going to be consistent with high amounts of damage. If this character gets a stock lead, he's the best character in the game. I'm a firm believer that Chrom players should look for a stock lead and then nair forward air up B, nair forward air up B, GG, game's over. Do that twice and you've won the match. His platform sharking with up air is ridiculous. This character is just so well-rounded except in that one area of recovery. I would personally love to see this character played more. I do find him more fun to watch than Roy. I don't know why. They're both very fun characters to watch because they're both so aggressive, but something about Crom, his moves just sound so much more satisfying. I wish this character was able to be put in the super viable tier, but I think most would agree that you just can't fit him there, especially when Roy is almost a direct upgrade. The second to last character in solo viable is going to be Link. Link is one of those characters where we get back to what I was saying a while back about theory and not valuing tournament results as much. Link, although he doesn't have the best tournament results, this character in theory has a lot of schmicks and a lot of setups. His bomb is absolutely fantastic, whether it be for ledge trapping, for edge guarding, for hitting himself with it to recover, to getting Z-drop aerial combos. His Z-drop aerial combos are the best in the game, comparable to someone like Diddy Kong. I think they're actually better than Diddy Kong's just because he can get kills off them so easily. Link's Nair is phenomenal. It is one of the best Nairs in the game. There is an argument for best Nair in the game. They recently buffed his jab by 1 frame, and people didn't think that was very big, but I think it's a huge change because now he can Nair jab, and he can pretty much pressure your shield a lot freer than he used to, and it leads to him getting punished a lot less for nairing your shield. I've always thought that if Link had something better like Nair jab, something really fast that he could just instantly do on your shield to either bait you to stop shielding and punish you, or pressure your shield safer, then he'd be really good, and I still think he is really good. But that 1 frame, it was important in my opinion, but we're just not seeing it because the character doesn't get much tournament play. I think Link's only weakness is that if you are off stage and your opponent has the bomb on stage, if you don't have the bomb to help you recover, his recovery becomes pretty bad. But that's a very niche scenario that doesn't happen often. He recently got I don't know if this was in the final patch, but he got a down tilt buff to where his down tilt sends his opponents closer to him, which is very Young Link-esque, meaning his combos are going to be easier and a lot more consistent, which is a very, very huge change as well. They also made his up smash stronger, which was already one of the strongest up smashes in the game. But Link is very well-rounded. I've said that about many characters, but that just shows how balanced this game is. Very well-rounded and has almost no weaknesses. This is a character that the characters above him are strictly better than him, and that's no fault of his own. My last character, who I have debated many, many times whether to put them at the bottom of Super Viable, at the top of Solo Viable. But at the end of the day, I do believe they belong at the top of Solo Viable for a few reasons, and it's Samus. Charge Shot is one of the best moves in the game. It can be fully charged and become a very good kill option. It has kill combos that it leads into. Samus has some of the best and easiest high damaging combos in the game. Half charge shot into grab down throw forward air does like 50%. That's 3 moves. 50%. This character does damage like it's nothing. And then when she's done doing that damage, she's ledge trapping you. And Samus is arguably the best ledge trapper in the game. I would probably put her around number 2 or number 3 because I think there is one character who has better ledge trapping than Samus, and I'll reveal that later. But the character's ledge trapping is so broken. The character's aerials are all fantastic. The character has true 0 to deaths on a lot of characters on small battlefield with upper up B. And the character overall just looks very synergistic. The whole kit flows together so well. When you see a Samus move around correctly, it just looks so satisfying. The character really makes sense to play and to feel. You do a slightly charged charge shot at their shield, and then you do a run-up grab, and then you follow that into a down throw nair. You get a tech chase situation, you tech chase them into a bigger charge shot or a dash attack, and then you start to ledge trap. You can edge guard a bit. Once you're done the ledge trap, you're back to neutral, and you're charging your charge shot. It's just a really easy and really effective flowchart that the character is allowed to use in many, many matchups, and it's very effective in most matchups. I think the character has been punished a little bit by DLC Pack 2. I think they lose to Pyra Mythra, Sephiroth, and Min Min. And even within the base roster, they had a couple bad matchups. I think Fox is Samus' worst matchup. I think Samus loses badly to Lucina as well. On the flip side, she does well against other top tiers like Peach, Rob, Sonic. Samus beating Sonic shows how good Charge Shot is. Samus beats Sonic purely because of Charge Shot. If you watch Siskui vs Sonic's or Ken at Smash World Tour, you'll see how effective Charge Shot is at shutting down all of Sonic's game plan.
Okay, I've just gone back to reorder my solo viable tier for individual characters, and I think it's time to move on to super viable. The rest of these characters that we have, as I said, are able to win a major tournament without secondaries. These characters are truly the best of the best. That being said, I don't believe there is a humongous gap between these two tiers, but I do think it is noticeable. And I think each of these characters definitely deserve to be in this upper echelon for one reason or another. And I think the perfect one to start us off is going to be Sheik. As a former Sheik main, I used to believe that this character would have been put in solo viable, or what was in my last tier list, high tier. And that's simply for the way that I looked at her matchup spread. I'll start with her matchups and then I'll go into her strengths and weaknesses because I do think she has a lot of strengths. But when it came to her matchup chart, I thought that she lost to Yoshi, Pikachu, Pac-Man, Ice Climbers, and Pokemon Trainer. I think she loses a couple more matchups than that, but I thought that those were her worst matchups. And to start it off, I think my opinion on Pokemon Trainer has changed. Although Squirtle does very well against Sheik, I think Sheik does very well against Ivysaur, which is important since Ivysaur is sort of the most well-rounded Pokemon of the three, and if you can shut Ivysaur down, then Pokemon Trainer struggles a lot, and I believe Sheik's neutral is just way too oppressive for Ivy to handle. I don't think Yoshi is a 60-40 matchup in his favor. I think it's 55-45 now. I believe Pikachu is a 60-40 matchup. I believe Pac-Man is a 70-30 matchup or 65-35, somewhere. It's definitely her worst matchup. I believe Ice Climbers to be either 60-40 or 55-45. But despite all these matchups seeming as rough as they are, all the characters I just named are extremely uncommon. There's one Pikachu in the world that's making it work, being Esam, and there's one Pac-Man in the world making it work, being T as well. And that's not to discredit other players, but Esam is clearly a top 20 player in the world. T is very clearly a top 10 player in the world. So despite me still believing that she has these bad matchups, she's just not going to have to worry about them in most brackets. Which is what I think allows her to move up to the very edge of Super Viable, especially because the only losing matchup that has some sort of semblance of being unwinnable would be Pac-Man, just because that matchup is really rough, and I was personally very bad at it when I made the character. But moving on from that, this character is incredibly strong, but unfortunately she kind of got the Cloud treatment at the beginning of Ultimate, where we saw how many characters were in the game, and they were clearly a shell of their Smash 4 self, so we just threw them to the wayside. But now Sheik is picking up a lot of traction, and she's being played by many, many Japanese players. The character out-neutrals a lot of the cast, which is very impressive for how important neutral is in this game. That one neutral win is what really matters, and pushing it to the max in terms of your advantage state is what's going to win you a match, and Sheik is very good at doing both. Sheik's recovery is pretty much uncontestable by almost every character in the game. She has one of the best recoveries by far. The character probably has the most kill confirms in the entire game, whether it be Raindrop being forward tilt up air, drag down up air, up smash, whether it be Needles up smash, Needles bouncing fish, down tilt up smash, weak nair bouncing fish. In terms of weaknesses, I believe she has three big ones. One, which is probably the least important, is that she doesn't have a stray kill move such as a wolf back air. She has to get these combos set up, and that's why you see many people living to extremely high percents once they got out of Sheik's combo kill ranges. I believe the second biggest weakness is the character's weight. This character is very light, one of the lightest in the game. She's going to die a lot earlier than most characters, but her incredibly strong neutral allows her to kind of cancel that out a bit if she just plays well. But the reason I'm mentioning this weakness is because I think it actually leads into her biggest weakness, which is an inability to play from behind. I think that when the opponent gets a stock lead or even just a reasonable amount of percent lead on Sheik, the game becomes significantly harder for her, like almost exponentially, because then Sheik has to force something, and you lose one of the biggest strengths about the character's neutral, which mainly boils down to the ability to whiff punish and the ability to force guesses out of your opponent. And being put in a situation where you're forced to guess is very, very hard. Guessing is naturally a lot harder than reacting in most games because you have to come up with something, whereas the opponent has to react what you're doing and they already have a set of game plans they're aware of. Whereas you have to make something entirely new if you want it to work. So when Sheik's forcing you to guess, that's where she thrives her hardest, but when you force her to guess due to having a lead, that's when she can begin to crumble. And I don't think that top players are exploiting it enough, but in America we might not see a lot of Sheik play anytime soon. I believe now is time for our second Final Fantasy character, Sephiroth. Of course, I definitely have to mention that I'm extremely excited to hear that Tweak is picking up Sephiroth again. And his own words were that he was going to try to win a major tournament with Sephiroth this year, so I'm very excited to see his play in tournament. And I don't only say this as a fan of Tweak, but I say this because I think this could really be the meta push that Sephiroth needs. Sephiroth was in a really weird position when he came out because the general community, like the high to low level players, thought that he wasn't that good of a character and that he would be in maybe, a couple tiers below this. And the top players were overly valuing his strengths, saying that he's top 5, top 10. And I think he's sort of found himself a middle ground, but of course more on the higher side. One Wing Angel is very clearly the best comeback mechanic in the game, because it could be applied to any character. Imagine you get any character in this game and you buff all of their stats by 30%, and you give them an extra double jump. That's enough to shoot all of these characters into solo viable, and that's enough to put any of these characters into super viable. A previous weakness I thought Sephiroth had was his inability to escape shield pressure, and how he would constantly get bullied in shield, but I think footstool down air prevents that. But now I believe his main weakness to be how claustrophobic he is. And what I mean by that is when characters get close to him and they're not staying at his sword range, he can really struggle and he gets smothered very easily. So basically he struggles a lot against rushdown characters, and we still have quite a bit of rushdown characters left. And there's one right next to him. I think that he loses pretty badly to Sheik. And the third thing would be that he doesn't have the greatest punishes. When I think about it, if someone were to do a very laggy move on Sephiroth's shields, I don't really know what he's going to get out of that. Normally he's just going to get like a nair into another aerial, and I think that's about it. I actually think the best thing that he can get is actually Shadow Flare, so at least you're setting up the situation and you have some set play afterwards, but you're banking that you're going to win neutral again in the future, which is risky. Which is why I think it takes a very dedicated player to master this character and play him effectively. Also, I know that he has some slight functionality problems when it comes to Octoslash. I believe the characters can fall out of it pretty easily. I've seen that more than a few times simply watching Nairo's streams, he complains about it all the time. But aside from that, yeah, Sephiroth still has a lot of sauce to him, and he has a lot of things going his way. He has some of the best shield break setups in the game, and not only is that impressive by itself, but it's impressive because he can kill you with 0. For example, fully charged neutral B into forward smash kills most characters in the game with 0. One Wing Angel makes his disadvantage significantly better. I think Sephiroth is one of the only characters in the game that can plank. His forward air clinging to the wall and allowing him to stay on the ledge for an extended period of time is something that I'd like to see Sephiroth experiment with more. I think he has a lot of potential to reduce his ledge trapping disadvantage state, which is not a privilege that many characters in this game have. Almost none do. I think this character takes a lot of precision as well as a deep understanding of neutral and spacing. After Sephiroth is going to be Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong is of course a character that has had a humongous rise in terms of the general public's opinion of him. Only now in this post-quarantine era of offline Smash have we seen this character put under the light that he deserves. I actually highly debated whether I wanted to put Diddy Kong up here in this tier or at the very top of Solo Viable, and I think I'm going to put him here for the same reason that I'm putting Sheik here, and I'll elaborate. Diddy Kong has some of the best top tier matchup spreads in the game. I think Diddy Kong beats Joker, Peach, Halutena, Paramithra, Zero Suit Samus, which are all pretty relevant characters in the meta, I'd say. Surprisingly, the least relevant of those is probably Joker, funnily enough. But that being said, Diddy Kong has multiple losing matchups with characters below him. The one clear one that is actually not below him is Pac-Man. Pac-Man is 70-30, I believe, in Pac-Man's favor. It's very hard for Diddy Kong. I think Diddy Kong struggles pretty greatly against Isabelle, Villager, and Duck Hunt. I think he struggles, but to a lesser extent, against characters like Jigglypuff, Samus, and Olimar. And the one common trend that these characters have is they're all sort of zoner trap characters. The main reason that these two are so bad, Isabelle and Villager, if they pocket his banana, he can't pull another one out for the rest of the game. So they just pocket his banana and he lost his best move. Not only that, but characters like Duck Hunt and Pac-Man are good against him because they can put down traps and they can put down objects on the map that prevent him from throwing banana. And I think Diddy Kong's zoning is only considered good because his banana is a transcendent projectile. And what that means is that an item or a projectile that is transcendent cannot interact with any other hitboxes. So if Diddy throws a banana at me, I can't use my sword move to make the banana disappear. It'll go right through the sword and hit me. And going back to those bad matchups, the reason that Pac-Man and Duck Hunt are so bad is because the items that they put down all have hurt boxes as well as hitboxes. And just to clarify on those two terms of hurtbox and hitbox, a hurtbox is anywhere where something can take damage and be hit. And a hitbox is any of the area where a thing does damage. So for Duck Hunt's down B, he puts down this little mini cowboy gunner who will after a short period of time shoot a bullet. And you can hit the gunner and stop him from shooting the bullet. So basically the bullet is a hitbox because it's dealing damage, but you can hit the gunner and knock him out of it. So the gunner is a hurtbox because he can take damage. So with that mini tangent out of the way, let's bring this back to Diddy Kong. That's why these matchups like Duck Hunt and Pac-Man are so hard, because they reduce the effectiveness of his banana transcendency. And to summarize, I think his recovery is very solid as well. I think he's a very all-around, well-rounded character, and he definitely has a spot in the current meta, because of how uncommon his bad matchups are. I think after Diddy Kong, we're gonna have Sonic. Rolling around at the speed of sound, got places to go, gotta follow my rainbow. Sonic is of course the fastest character in the game. That gives distinct, huge advantages to a character that most people might not see at face value. He, simply by existing, is a zoner. He zones you as soon as you pick him on the character select screen. He zones you simply by existing. He zones you simply by the match continuing and the clock going down. Because if you're most of these characters down here, what are you going to do? Catch him? I don't think so. A lot of these characters have no choice but to lose against Sonic, and that's an extremely powerful dynamic to have. If Sonic is fighting some of these characters down here, and even some of the characters above him like Peach, when he gets the lead, the character has no choice but to lose the game. But the flip side to that is, I think Sonic is very bad at approaching, which is why his game plan relies so much on whiff punishing and camping. If Sonic loses the lead, it becomes very hard for him to pull back. The character becomes very predictable, he has to rush you down, he has to keep going in, and a lot of his moves aren't that safe on shield, which leads to him becoming predictable. So he's kind of like Sheik in a way, but he's more polarizing on both sides. And what I mean is that when Sonic and Sheik both have a lead, they both become extremely good characters and they can almost win the match guaranteed if they're playing correctly, but Sonic does it better. And when they don't have the lead, they struggle to come back and to bring it back in their favor, but Sonic struggles even more.
But I do think his higher highs make up for his lower lows when compared to Sheik, which is why I think he belongs higher than her. As I said with my Samus explanation, I think Sonic pretty much loses to all Charge Shot characters. A move that is as good as Charge Shot is extremely hard for him to deal with since he can't Spin Dash, and Spin Dash is obviously his best move. Playing as, yes, Smash community, I know you hate him, but you have to admit it, playing as well as playing against Sonic is very, very mentally exhausting. Up next is going to be Mario. I think I may have had Mario a little bit higher than this on my last tier list. And I still think he's a very good character, and he has all the strengths that I previously mentioned in my last tier list, but I think DLC Pack 2 was a bit unfavorable to him. I think Min Min, Sephiroth, and Pyramithra are all bad matchups for him, and adding 3 bad matchups to a character's lineup was never going to be good. I think Mario's biggest strength that a lot of people don't talk about is how the stage list benefits him. I think Mario has 2 bad stages, which is Kalos and FD, and you get 2 bans per tournament, so those are gone. Every other stage Mario does very well on. The opponent is forced to ban Yoshi's Story against you, so that's one of their bans gone, because if you take Mario to Yoshi's Story, you're doing something wrong. He's going to kill you at 33 times a game, and GG, shake my hand. Besides the few stages he struggles on, he has very explosive and deadly combos pretty much everywhere else. He is without a doubt one of the best bracket characters in the game. He's very effective in tournament play due to how simple he is. There is never a safe moment when playing against Mario, even in his bad matchups, and that's very stressful for the opponent. But on that note, I think he's a little bit lower because 1, DLC Pack 2 wasn't very kind to him, and 2, with the way the meta is currently shifting and starting to stabilize, I think it's going to be harder and harder for Mario to win neutral, especially against all the sword characters that he already struggles with that are only becoming more popular. But similarly to Kazuya, Game & Watch, and honestly even more than those two, his explosiveness allows him to get past those bad matchups, so I still think he has a spot in the current meta. Next up is going to be one of the bigger S-tier demotions on my last tier list, Shulk. Also, quick note, this is being ordered as I go. So this will be the final placing of the Super Viable tier. I still think he's very good, and he can definitely win a tournament by himself, as it says here. I just think that there are some problems with Shulk that I was aware of, but I didn't value enough. I think his disadvantage without arts is surprisingly bad. And even when it comes to his neutral B, his Monado arts, I think there's a lot of counterplay being formed around his arts that people weren't doing before. The absolute biggest example being Shield Art. Although Shulk is completely broken and he's the only character in Smash history who can escape hit stun, there are combos for Shield Art. Even if Shulk gets out of the kill, you can still do combos when he's in Shield Art to get rid of the duration. And apart from that, I think the startup on his moves is something that allows him to be parried a little bit easier than other characters. And I think that's about it for his notable weaknesses, which is what made me put him a couple spots down. As for his strengths, we all still know what they are. Monado Arts is one of the best moves in the game. Buster is incredible for racking up damage. Speed makes you have the best neutral in the game. Smash makes you have the best killing in the game. If the Shulks are switching to certain arts in advantageous positions and the correct spots, then the disadvantages of the arts don't matter. If you're in Smash Art while you're ledge trapping or edge guarding, what is the opponent going to do? The fact that you take more knockback as well means nothing, because they're not going to hit you. They're still trying to get out of disadvantage. He gets jump art and he gets out of the corner for free. Despite what I mentioned, shield art is still good at escaping death and escaping combos. And you can use smash art to escape combos too because you get sent farther, so a lot of combos don't become true anymore. This character's tech cap is very, very high. Dial storage by itself is very difficult to execute and provides a lot of advantages, so it's very important to learn if you want to be a Shulk main. Overall, I think this spot on the tier list suits him well. Still a very formidable character that we haven't seen much of, unfortunately, and I don't think will happen for the rest of this game since he is no longer the best sword character in the game, in my opinion. There are a couple others that do the job better. And one of them is going to be right next to him, and that's going to be Lucina. Very solid neutral, very solid advantage state, not too bad of a disadvantage, pretty good recovery. I think the character has very little flaws. I think the character's only flaw is that they can sometimes get bullied in disadvantage. And that's very rarely, simply because they're not a fast faller. Lucina is very floaty. Of course, the Lucina player is going to be Proto Banham. Absolutely phenomenal player. Definitely top 3 in Japan, definitely top 10 in the world by far. And ever since the Min Min nerfs, we're seeing him play a lot more Lucina and a lot less Min Min. But his Lucina is something special, which is very surprising for how much of a bland and basic character Lucina is. He really innovates with her a lot. And I think his performance and the way he plays the game has had me put Lucina higher. I think she would have been near the end of top tier originally. I don't think she has a matchup that's worse than 55-45, but she probably doesn't have a lot of matchups that are better than 6-4. So although she has very little losing matchups, she probably has a lot of evens and a lot of slight wins, which is still good, but when a character is put in that scenario in terms of their matchup spread, it kind of comes down to player skill and player difference, which is why Proto is able to do so well. And you're not always going to be better than your opponent, which is why playing her is an inherent risk, but I think she can definitely do it. Next up is going to be Rob, the character who went this entire game's lifespan, all of these patches, without getting nerfed once. I don't know how he did it, but look how he's looking at us, dude. He knows. He knows he's the devil.
This character is one of the best zoners in the game for sure. Not only is he a zoner, but like I said before, something I value really highly is having the ability to scrap, and Rob definitely has that. He has the best down tilt in the game. It's frame 3 minus 5. It's so good because you can't even react to the move happening. So by the time you've reacted to the move happening, he's already gone through some of his recovery frames. So it's even safer than that most of the time. Of course, it becomes obvious when a Rob down tilts your shield 7 times, but if he does it like once and then shields, and then you react late and he punishes you with an up smash, that's when this character becomes broken. And he already is broken. The character's recovery is very good for a heavy. Their disadvantage is not nearly as bad as some of the heavies below him. And one of the main reasons I think Rob is so good is embodied in the Rob Pokemon Trainer matchup. Pokemon Trainer has Squirtle, Ivysaur, Charizard, of course. Squirtle absolutely destroys Rob, but Squirtle has a hard time killing, so then you have to switch. And most trainers are going to switch to Ivysaur. Rob absolutely destroys Ivysaur. It's very hard for Ivysaur to get his edge guards and flowcharts out, and it's hard for him to get his kill confirms against Rob because he's zoning so much better than him, that you will often find yourselves in very weird and strange situations. The prime example of this is Zachary versus Atelier at Akagaribi, one of the ones that happened a while back. There was a specific stock, I forgot which set it was, but there was a specific stock where Atelier was Squirtle, and he did 130% to Rob, as Squirtle. He switched to Ivysaur, and he died first. Ivysaur couldn't get anything done even though his opponent was at kill percent the time he spawned. And I think that is why Pokemon Trainer is so bad against Rob, but I think that applies to a lot of matchups as well. I think Rob can really cheese out stocks even if he's at the risk of death. But his explosiveness allows him to quite literally bypass a lot of those losing matchups. Oh, I lose this matchup 65-35 and I get abused the entire time? Well, I got my 0 to death. Now I'm winning. There are very few characters in this game that when they have a losing matchup, they just go, oh, I can 0 to death them, lol. Rob gets to do that, which is what I think puts him this high. Next up, another slight demotion from my last tier list. Not too big, but it still is definitely a noticeable demotion, and that's going to be the Princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, Peach. I don't think she's as flexible as I once thought she was. It may seem obvious, but just to clarify, when I mean flexible, I mean their ability to go around and adapt to various situations. We all know Peach's strengths, of course. She has some of the best combos in the game, she has a crazy advantage state, float is the best mechanic in the game, all of her aerials are pretty much lagless. She has fantastic edge guarding, she has some of the best corner pressure in the entire game, turnips are absolutely broken. But, when it comes to situations where Peach is struggling, I don't think those strengths are always enough to help her get through it. And to elaborate on that, I think we should go into her weaknesses. Her main weakness is that the character is very, very slow, and usually it's fine because the way that Peaches counteract that weakness is by pulling and throwing turnips. But the problem with that is that I don't think it's always enough. I don't think it's enough to beat some of the characters that do well against her, like Pyramithra and Game & Watch. And on top of that, she surprisingly struggles with a lot of the characters below her. Not necessarily in a way that she would lose, but in a way that is definitely noticeable comparable to her good matchups. I think she loses to Samus. I think she might go even with Villager. I think she might struggle with Duck Hunt and Mii Gunner. And one thing to note is that I think these matchups are only bad if you're on a big stage. If you're on a small stage, then I think Peach doesn't care, and she's just going to do her game plan anyway. But in those specific scenarios, she can struggle a lot more than I give her credit for. After Peach is going to be the character that a lot of people might have been waiting for, and I think it's time we place him. Sora. Sora, being the last DLC character, was not even on my last tier list, and I'm excited to share my thoughts about him. Of course, as is obvious by my placement, I think the character is very good. I think he's easy to pick up, but he's very hard to master. A lot of his combos are very unintuitive compared to the rest of the cast. He's very unique in a way that many characters just don't have any semblance of. He is the floatiest character in the game by a significant margin, and that leads to him having significant strengths and weaknesses in some of the same areas. For example, his air dodge is one of the best in the game, air recovering. It goes incredibly far, but he's forced to use it a lot when he's being juggled, because floaty characters naturally have a harder time getting down. His double jump is one of the best in the game when it comes to edge guarding because not only does it go very far, but it covers a lot of space due to how active his hitboxes are. So he can stay and hover in an area for a very long time, which a lot of characters can't deal with. And on the flip side, his double jump is one of the worst in the game when it comes to getting out of combos because it has this really awkward startup before he actually starts going anywhere, very similar to Ness and Mewtwo. So that in turn is what forces him to air dodge so much at disadvantage. All of his neutral B spells are phenomenal. Firaga cannot be punished and it leads into dash attacks and dash grabs. Blizzaga is safe on shield due to the multi-hit and it does a ton of shield damage and you can combo out of the ice if you time it right. And Thundaga is a very good edgeguarding tool for certain characters below him and it's very low risk. And if the meta for him goes where I think it will go, when he has the lead he can use his spells to stall himself off stage for a very long time due to how much his spells slow him down in the air. His up B is fantastic for recovery, out of shield, and killing. And he has multiple combos into it that kill. I think his forward smash is one of the best in the game, without a doubt. It's as strong as Joker's forward smash, and it's basically unpunishable if you get the tipper, because it has so much shield stun.
I think his ledge trapping is the best in the entire game with how synergistic his kit is. The spells are great for standing by roll. The dash attack and forward tilt are great for two-framing and catching people out if they're hanging on the ledge too long. His up B is so fast and strong that it's a great tool for reacting to normal and jump get up. And even if they get off the ledge, they're still in the corner, and his multi-hit aerials bouncing himself off of the shield, making them completely safe, is ridiculous. It allows him to exert free pressure on his opponents and mix up whenever he wants because he has 3 different variants of all the moves. And the main reason that I think he's better than the characters below him in Super Viable tier is purely because of the new Sora combo guide video that Dusty Carpet released. I would highly recommend checking that out. The Sora combos displayed in that video not only are incredibly optimized, but they work against a lot of DIs and mashing air dodge. And the moment we see those combos start getting implemented in the top Sora players' game plans, that's when this character is going to shoot up in a lot of people's tier lists. And in Japan, Sora is still a very popular character. Zachary won a major. He won a Kagaribi with Sora within 2 weeks of him coming out. Apart from this character's floatiness and lack of a good double jump when in disadvantage, Sora has a lot going for him. And this character has a lot of untapped potential. Next, I'm going to put Roy. Roy is another character that got slightly demoted from my last tier list. This is another example where it was not due to any buffs or nerfs happening, but simply the way I view the character being a bit different now. Roy is one of the best rushdown characters in the game. This character does not stop pressing buttons until someone is dead, either him or his opponent. The character is hyper aggressive, very fast, very mobile, very strong, and a lot of characters just can't deal with that. I think he loses to Wario, Pikachu, and Diddy Kong. Those are 3 characters that are very good at slowing down the pace of the match. Wario, it's with his incredible airspeed. Diddy Kong, it's with his transcendent banana. And Pikachu, it's because of T-Jolts. They can just tell him to stop and he kind of has to obey, to a certain extent. I also think he loses to Inkling, just because her neutral is flat out better than his. This character just spams kill confirms like it's nothing. Jab back air, jab up air at high percents, basically Jair in general, jab side B. Jab forward smash in some very specific situations. Down tilt is one of his best moves. It's incredibly safe on shield and it leads to a lot of tech chase scenarios, and his tech chases are very powerful with how strong his forward smash is. And I also think his recovery is better out of shield than Crumb's, which might be a hot take, but the armor on the recovery starts sooner, which I think is more important than the damage it deals, so he has a better get off me tool when he's being punished and bullied in shield. Cola won CEO, which I believe is his first major win, and he also got second at Let's Make Big Moves, having an incredible losers run. Although some people might call Cola an inconsistent player, I believe that's partially him and partially a combination of the character he plays. Even though Roy is more consistent than Crom, funnily enough, I still think he could be considered an inconsistent character due to the one playstyle he's forced to play as, and he can't switch it up much. He's also the only super viable character that does not have the ability to zone. Apart from that, Roy's becoming a very popular character in the meta, and I'm glad we're seeing more of him. Number 12, 12th best in the game. I believe this is an 8-spot demotion from last time. I previously had this character at number 5, I think. That's going to be ZSS. Or number 4, either 8 or 9 spot demotion. It seems pretty big, but going from 5th place to 12th place, you're still alright, I promise you. My opinion of this character has been heavily influenced by the nerfs. I didn't think they were such a big deal at first, but seeing them in action and seeing Mars struggle in a way that he never has before in tournament is making me reevaluate this character quite a bit. I still think she's obviously incredibly good. Being 12th best in a game with 80-something characters is phenomenal. ZSS does not suck, I can confirm that right now, and I promise you, I would bet any amount of money that I don't even think Mars thinks that. This character has actually fluctuated a lot in terms of where I think they should go in Super Viable. When I first realized the severity of the nerfs, I thought she was like top 20, like near the end, or maybe the very last character in Super Viable. But I also realized that the character definitely has ways around these bad matchups and around these nerfs that people aren't giving her credit for, simply because no Zero Suits are playing like that. And what I mean, of course, is by camping. Zero Suit is one of the most evasive characters in the game. Zero Suit is one of the fastest characters in the game in terms of pure run speed. When combining all of her stats and all of her strengths, I think overall Zero Suit is by far the fastest character in the game. Her air mobility is pretty decent. Flip Jump gives her a huge boost in air mobility, more than what she already has. Her recovery is fantastic. Her jump height is 3rd best in the game, I believe. Her initial dash is still incredible. And the character is very skinny and has a lot of hurt box shifting, so it's very hard to hit her. I still think Flip Jump has an argument for being the best move in the game. I originally thought it was the best move in the game uncontested, but I think there are a couple other moves that could rival with it now. She struggles a lot against other characters that can keep up with her speed, aka Roy, aka Sheik, aka Fox. aka Pyramithra. I think all of those are bad matchups for her. I think the worst of those matchups is definitely Pyramithra. I think it's her worst matchup now by far. It's definitely a 60-40 matchup in Pyramithra's favor. I think the way I'm going to describe this is by using Roy as the best example. So like I said before about how Roy never stops scrapping, he always fights until someone is dead. Zero Suit can scrap as well, but after a certain point she has to stop. So you often reach situations where Zero Suit doesn't want to be in this situation anymore and she's feeling very claustrophobic, but Roy just keeps going. Mithra just keeps going. Diddy Kong just keeps going. And she can't get them off of her. And she gets smothered very easily by those characters after her time of scrapping is up, but the main reason I still think she's this good and this high up on the tier list is simply her ability to camp. We see Japanese ZSSs doing it like Shiki and Kuro, but I still don't think they're doing it the best they could or the most they could. If this character gets her damage and then she starts camping with Zera, starts camping with Nair, because Nair is still -4, so matchups like Game & Watch, who have incredible out of shield, might be harder, but it doesn't change that much against characters that don't have the out of shield capabilities to deal with it. So once she gets her bread and butter combo in with something like Nair up smash up air, she starts Zare camping, she starts using flip jump, she starts timing you out, she plays the patient game, she waits for you to get impatient, she whiff punishes you, she puts you in the corner, and then she Nair flip kicks you like she always has, at 40%, and the character is basically what she was before. Granted, this makes her a lot harder to play, as I've said many times about the difficulties of camping and the difficulties of guessing, but by no means is it impossible. So I still think she deserves a spot this high up, and she can absolutely do it in her bad matchups. Yeah, I think the next character here is going to be Pokemon Trainer. The biggest strength of Pokemon Trainer is, of course, that you do not have to play any of the Pokemon to their major flaws. Squirtle struggles with killing, but you never have to play Squirtle when the opponent's at high percent. Squirtle's very light, but you never have to play him when he's at death percent. Ivysaur is very effective, but he struggles with longevity. His flowcharts are very basic and simple, and when the opponent has time to catch on, he can end up struggling a lot more than he should. But you don't have to play him for the entire match. You can switch to Squirtle or Charizard to get the job done in other areas. Charizard is a heavy, he's a big body, he gets comboed to 100%, but why are you playing Charizard at 0%? You only have to play him when he's needed. Charizard is probably the best character in the game with Rage. He's scarier than Arsene Joker, he's scarier than Wario with Waft, he's scarier than One Wing Sephiroth, he's scarier than Peach, he's scarier than Rob. I don't care what anyone says. Those characters can't back throw back air me at 30 and kill me. Charizard can. Ivysaur might as well be a sword character with how good his zoning is. Back air is very good for stuffing out aerial approaches. Razor Leaf is a very quick projectile that's good at conditioning opponents into jumping or shielding, and he has very good combo throws and kill setups out of grab, which is why he wants his opponent to shield. And of course, Charizard is just the embodiment of swing moves out until you hit what you want and you kill them eventually. The character's only flaw is that the base stats of all three Pokemon aren't very impressive. All of the Pokemon have pretty bad air drift. All of the Pokemon are very slow. The only fast one is Charizard, but Charizard's a big body, so that doesn't really make up for it. So characters that can abuse those bad statistics can really beat them up, like Pac-Man and Rob. I think those are Pokemon Trainer's two worst matchups. But apart from that, the character really just makes sense. When you pick them up and you play them, you understand when to switch. In a couple of hours, you get the groove going, you understand the flowcharts, and you're pretty much good to go. We have now entered top 10. I don't think these characters are significantly better than the ones below them. I think the top tiers in this game, and most characters in this game, are very balanced. But these are, of course, the best. These are the top 10 in my opinion. And starting with number 10, it's going to be Snake. I think this may be exactly where he was last time, because I think he's the perfect type of character to start off a top 10 list. I think he's right there on the edge for various reasons. I still remember what I said about Snake in my last tier list, and I still think that logic applies almost perfectly, since I don't think much has changed for the character, so I'm probably going to go off that again. I should start things off by saying that I think Snake is the hardest character in the game, by a significant amount to be honest. And the reason for that is a bit funny. I think he's so difficult because the character has quite literally an overwhelming amount of options he can pick. The character has so many options and so many solutions for every single situation in the game, except landing from above. That is his one scenario that he really struggles with and he really sucks at. Getting juggled and bullied in disadvantage is where he struggles the most. But apart from that, he has solutions and options for every other situation he can be presented with. And someone might instantly think, whoa, isn't this the best character in the game by far then? And I don't think you'd be wrong for thinking that, but the reason he's only number 10 for me, and also that's an insane thing to think about. The character that I just described is only number 10 in the game. That shows how good a lot of characters in this game are. The reason he's only number 10 is because it's so easy to fall into a rhythm while playing him. I'm a firm believer that when you play any video game that is competitive, your personality is being projected onto the screen. And I think Snake is the biggest example of that. Due to how many options he has, it's really easy to put your personality on screen and everything about your personality. Your good habits, your bad habits, and that leads to becoming very predictable very quickly. I think Snake's biggest weakness, which isn't even an in-game thing, is the player who's playing him's ability to adapt.
The character suffers from longevity the way Ivysaur does, where after a certain amount of time, your opponent's going to know your flowchart, they're going to know your playstyle, and they're going to be punishing you very, very hard. And the only way to stop that is to completely change your playstyle every so often to avoid that predictability, which is very, very hard to do. Recognizing a situation for what it is and then instantly switching how you're playing entirely to avoid being counterplayed is not something that any other character has to deal with to that extent. Snake's up tilt is the best up tilt in the game. It kills incredibly early, even earlier with rage. It tech chases very well from his down throw, and it's very good at snuffing out aerial approaches. His grenade is frame 1, so he has a frame 1 combo out that does damage to him and his opponent, but most of the time it's going to be worth it since he's so heavy. Fighting Snake is like fighting multiple characters at the same time. You have to understand where his grenades are, you have to understand where his C4 is, you have to understand when his grenade is going to explode because there's a 2.5 second delay before the grenade explodes. Everything you do has to be planned 2 seconds in advance, as the Snake and as the Snake's opponent, which makes this character one of the hardest to fight and the hardest to play in the game. That level of foresight, no Mithra, got him, and planning is required for any other character in the game. His boxing options are very good, his down tilt is one of the best in the game, his down air is a very good out of shield option, his damage output is quite literally unfair. He'll do 60 damage in 3 hits easily, but his disadvantage being so abysmal is pretty bad in the current meta because advantage state is so important and pushing that opening to the max is something that a lot of characters in the upper echelon are very capable of, and Snake struggles a lot against them. Number 9 is going to be Fox McCloud. Fox is actually a character that got quite a bit of a jump from my last tier list if I remember correctly. He is now at number 9 in the game, which is definitely higher than I had him last time. And Light at Super Smash Con showcased that this character is solo viable. He beat his either second or worst matchup, being Game & Watch, in a pretty dominant fashion. Light was coming in with the confidence he needed, he studied, he did the counterplay that he had to do, and he beat Meister's Game & Watch. And that matchup is very bad. I think it's without a doubt 60-40 in Game & Watch's favor. And Light still managed to overcome that barrier. Light showcasing at SmashCon showed how broken this character's neutral is. This character wins neutral just by deciding to. When you're against Fox, the only time you leave disadvantage state is when Fox wants you to. He decides when you're going to be able to land, he decides when you get to play the game again. He has a frame 4 nair that's very safe on shield, he has crazy combos, ridiculous damage output, his up air is in contention for the best up air in the game with Peach and Game & Watch. He doesn't get grab combos, but this character absolutely does not deserve grab combos, because he forces you to shield anyway. This character's forward throw can sometimes put you in tech chase scenarios. He can grab you and throw you off stage, and his ledge trapping is also some of the best in the game just due to his sheer speed. Although his recovery is by no means good, it's still not nearly as bad as people say. I think it takes a pretty good kit to go off stage versus Fox. I don't think it's just free for every character to edgeguard him like the Fox mains say. And more than his recovery, I think his biggest struggle is getting consistent kills, because he doesn't have any kill throws. His main ways of killing are up air, back air, and comboing into up smash, but that inconsistency with killing is what's going to put him right on the edge at number 9 for me. Number 8 is going to be Wario. This may be surprising to a lot of you if you don't keep up with Ultimate's meta, because, as we all know, I originally had Wario at number 1 on my last tier list, but I think these nerfs did change him enough to not warrant that position. The two main nerfs were that his up tilt is 4 frames less active, and his half waft and full waft both have 3 more frames of startup. And the one that hurts him the most is that up tilt waft is a lot harder to land now, which sucks because that was his universal kill confirm. Although he still has plenty of waft confirms like up air waft and nair waft, those are really hard to do because Wario likes to hesitate when he's in the air above you, and he likes to do falling aerials. So not only can a lot of characters react to that and swat him out of the air, but a lot of characters are way too short and way too mobile for him to hit that with. Whereas up tilt was the one that you could catch someone landing, you could hit them on the ground, and you could just get a waft confirm. But now you have to hit the very last part of up tilt for waft to be true, and the nerfs overall just force Wario to be more innovative and more creative with his combos. I think a character like ZSS nerfs were actually worse than Wario's. The reason for that being is the fact that when you nerf a move's safety on shield, that's every single character's shield in the game that it's affecting. ZSS's nair is 2 frames laggier on every single shield in the game. So not only did some of her bad matchups get worse, but some of her winning matchups maybe even went to even. But with Wario, the nerfs were handled in a way to where his bad matchups may have gotten worse, but his winning matchups are still going to be winning. But the areas where Wario struggled to land wafts already, like against Sonic, Zero Suit, Game & Watch, Pikachu, now it's even harder to land waft in those matchups, which makes those worse for him. And that's pretty much it for Wario. Gluttony is of course still going to do as well as he's always done with him. Gluttony is my favorite Smash player of all time. Gluttony's Wario is like fine aged wine. He's been playing this character since Brawl, since Smash 4. If you want a more in-depth explanation of the character, I would highly recommend going to my last tier list.
Since I did place him as number 1, I went really in depth into a lot of his kit as to why I think he's so good, and here I kind of just wanted to explain why he's been demoted rather than going through everything again. Number 7, we're going to have Wolf O'Donnell. Hold on, let me see if I can just, there we go. That's better. Get the whole tier list in one frame. So, Wolf O'Donnell. I think Wolf is in contention for the most well-rounded character in the game. I feel like I've said that so many times now, but I believe that sentiment to be especially true for Wolf because he is a jack of all trades, but he's also a master of some. He can do everything well, and then he can do some things extraordinarily well. And let's break that down. One of Wolf's biggest strengths is that he beats zoners. He beats almost every zoner in the game. He actually has that capability simply to how many built-in mix-ups he has in neutral. Wolf is like an onion. There are so many layers to his kit that synergize so well together that make him so well-rounded. In neutral, Wolf has two main goals for the most part, which are grab and forward air. That's already a mix-up because his forward air leads into a lot of damage, and his grab is to counteract you shielding for the forward air. That's the first layer. Second layer is that a lot of his aerials, all of his aerials, linger very long, and they're very good at snuffing out aerial approaches, which is why he does so well against someone like Zero Suit. This makes him very threatening in air-to-air combat, and it makes him very threatening at stopping characters from jumping. And jumping is very good in this game due to the universal jump squat of 3 frames that I was talking about a while back. So he has a general counterplay for one of the best universal mechanics in the game of jumping, and not every character has that luxury. His incredible air mobility combined with the hitboxes of his aerials allow him to approach if he wants to, but if he doesn't want to approach, he has his blaster. His blaster is a transcendent 10 damage projectile. So now we see that he has a way of zoning out the zoners, and 10 damage is a lot of damage. And the laser only hits on the ground. So, what is your goal? Your goal is to jump over the laser to try to get to him. He has those incredible hitboxes to snuff out your jumps. So that's not an option if you're doing it too late, so you have to commit very early. If you're committing very early to jumping over his blaster, his gun has a blade on the end of it. So if you get too close, you're going to get hit by the other part of the gun. And then let's say you're zoning Wolf. Well, not only does he have a very good reflector that he can keep active, but his dash attack propels him forward faster than his normal dash speed. So his dash attack functions as a zone breaker, so he can get close to you if he wants. His recovery is definitely the best of all the species, and it's pretty good. He has a frame 13 up smash out of shield, which isn't very fast, but it's very strong. He has multiple solid kill moves that he can just throw out without much fear, such as his back air and his forward tilt. And yeah, I honestly think Wolf does not have any major flaws. I think he has one minor flaw, which is that he can often get suffocated by characters with faster frame data than him, which is why I think he loses to characters like Fox. And apart from that, this character is very solid. One of the best tournament characters in the game for sure. Number 6 is a very hard choice for me because I'm going back and forth between 2 characters. So I'm not sure which one I like more being a number 6. The more I look at it, I think it's pretty clear who number 6 is here. Number 6 is going to be Inkling. Inkling is my new main, for those who may not know. In my last tier list, I stated that I'd picked up Inkling as a secondary, and I found them really fun to play. And I have since then fully transitioned from Sheik over to Inkling. Let's start off with everyone's favorite thing to say about the character. Inkling can't kill. Inkling's killing is bad. You only have roller or up throw up air. Yes, in terms of kill confirms, Inkling only has up throw up air and roller. That is true. Inkling has a killing back throw, which is very inconsistent. But let me give my 3 reasons, and these are general reasons, but my 3 reasons why I think Inkling is number 6. Inkling has a top 5 neutral in the game, in my opinion. I would probably put her around 5, but I do believe that she has one of the best neutrals in the game. Inkling is top 5 at edge guarding in the game. I would put her around 3 or 4, I'd say right around the middle, but the character is ridiculously good at edge guarding and is able to do it with very little risk. And my hottest take is that I think Inkling has the second best ledge trapping in the game. I think she is only outmatched by Sora in that regard. Splat Bomb covers ledge hang, normal getup, and ledge jump at times. If Inkling just stands by roll, you can cover every ledge option just by using Splat Bomb because it covers 3 for you, and the other 2 are very reactable, being getup attack and ledge roll. The character has very consistent 2-framing with down tilt, and they have a lot stronger but less consistent 2-framing with down smash. And although Inkling isn't going to get many direct kills from ledge trapping because, things like back air and nair aren't that strong, she's going to be doing it over and over again because you're going to continuously be put in that situation. And I'm also going to consider the human factor that being ledge trapped continuously is one of the most frustrating things in this game, which leads to people getting antsy and picking rushed options, which Inkling can take advantage of very well. Inkling has overall some of the best frame data in the game, possibly the best frame data in the game. Her neutral air is frame 6 minus 2 on shield. Her forward air is frame 10 minus 8 or 9 on shield. Her back air is frame 7 minus 2 on shield. and her up air is frame 12 minus 3 on shield. And her down air, which is, I almost wasn't going to consider it because it's more unrealistic to use that in neutral than the others, but it's frame 16 minus 5 on shield. I think Inkling's neutral B, the splatter shot, might be her best move. It's incredibly good, especially with the recent buff. It has incredible range, it builds up ink, of course, it's plus on shield from across the stage. As someone who likes to do ledge drop double jump neutral B when he's going back on stage, it's only minus 6 on shield from point blank. That is incredibly safe. And it's even safer than that realistically because you can stop it at any time you want. I think Inkling has the best jab in the game as well. I think it's a bit unfair because I'm considering the ink mechanic as well. If we were taking away ink, I'd probably give it to someone like Chrom. But including the entire character's kit, Inkling has the best jab in the game in my opinion. The character easily has a top 10 recovery in the game. Inkling literally has an invincible dash grab. Her grab isn't too good, it's only frame 8 standing, and her dash grab is frame 9. But it is invincible. Because when Inkling dashes, she goes into the ground, and if you immediately dash and grab, you are completely submerged in the ground until you grab them. After the Palutena nerfs, I think it's very possible that Inkling has the best pivot grab in the game as well. If you go on ultimate frame data and look at Inkling's pivot grab, it's absolutely ridiculous. The character manages to hold her own in terms of mobility. So all those things combined with the safety of the aerials, with the mobility, with the incredible dash, you have to remember that in this game you can dash cancel tilt, and Inkling has the best dash in the game free, not even close. So when you make her tilts better, it becomes amplified, and even better than the buff intended. And of course, up tilt definitely isn't the most amazing move in the world, but it has its uses. I think people undervalue up throw up air because it's a very, very complicated kill confirm. It has many factors to it that most kill confirms just don't have, especially ones based off grabs. The stage you're on increases the minimum percent by varying amounts. The amount of rage you have decreases the minimum percent by various amounts. Certain characters' air dodges also have to be taken into place. So when all these variables are put together, it makes up for a very complicated kill confirm that actually has a lot of opportunity to be landed. Because not only does Inkling have 2 pretty solid kill confirms with roller into whatever you want usually and up throw up air, a killing back throw that works at the higher percents, and this character's neutral is so broken that you can get them to higher percents easily if you're playing better. The character can rack up tons of damage while edge trapping, the character can get very early kills while edge guarding. Forward air, neutral air, and back air are all solid tech chase tools that either jab block to get more damage and more ink, or you can tech chase with roller. And the opponent is most likely not going to be ready for the mash right after they just escaped a tech situation, so you're going to get more time than usual to charge an F smash or charge an up smash. I think the only reason this character is not valued that much by this community anymore is because she's gated by human error. Because to be brutally honest, it's not realistic that you're going to win neutral every time, no matter what tools your character has. Even Min Min, who is attacking you from across the stage, isn't going to win neutral every time. I believe that the overall total skill level of the Smash community is far too low to see some characters shine as they should. Because if you think about it, a character like Steve is a perfect example of this. If a robot was playing Steve, then every single hit they would get, 0 to death. You're dead. GG, shake my hand. But that's not happening. And it's not going to happen anytime soon because that level of optimization is unrealistic. But there are some better examples like Sora. Sora's combos are hard, but they're by no means impossible. So technically, whenever a Sora gets the stray hit he needs, he should be dealing 60 minimum, but it's not happening yet. And of course, them being my new main, a lot of my thoughts regarding the character are based off what I'm experiencing, what I'm able to do, and what I'm seeing. But when I look on paper and when I see what this character is capable of, and I see their limitations, I truly believe the character is this good. Number 6. Breaking into the top 5 characters in the game. This list was very different last time around, I believe. I think 2 of these characters are different, and of course one of these characters wasn't even out yet. Who is the bottom of the best? I think it is very clearly Pac-Man. Pac-Man is stupid. Pac-Man is a ridiculous character. T is a phenomenal player. T is top 5 in the world in my opinion. I'm willing to say right now that Pac-Man has no flaws. I think he has character flaws. I think he does very poorly against Palutena. I think Wolf beats him. I think Sephiroth might even beat him. I think Min Min does very well. But even despite those characters doing as well as they do, I think you can throw any bracket at T and he will be able to get to top 8. I would say for 80% of the characters down here, when Pac-Man puts his fire hydrant down, they don't get to play the game anymore. They have to let him do whatever he wants and they just have to sit there and accept it. If you're a character who can't hit and get rid of hydrant quickly, like Sheik, you're going to get destroyed in this matchup. He has a fruit for almost every situation. Like I said before, the fire hydrant, it just holds down the neutral. It lets him charge fruit, which is already a bit of a synergy there. I don't consider his smash attacks to be smash attacks. I consider them to be final smashes. He has a frame 3 nair, which becomes a frame 6 out of shield option, which is very good. His forward air is phenomenal for comboing if you have Galaxian with you. His back air is very strong, and he has incredible edge guarding due to having the second best recovery in the game, in my opinion. Pac-Man's recovery is only outshined by Pikachu. I think Pac-Man might have the best grab in the game, which is very shocking to hear if you're looking at a Smash 4 perspective, because in Smash 4 he had the worst grab in the game, but it lingers so long you can just grab normal get up and they'll walk into it. He has combo throws at low percents for some reason, he has back throw as a kill throw, and his grab beats spot dodge. It's the only grab in the game that does so. I believe he has the second best kill confirm in the game, which is Bell into any smash attack. I think it's only outmatched by Diddy Kong, which is of course Banana into any smash attack. I think Banana's a bit better than Bell. And he has tools for most of the situations where he struggles in. Even though I think Wolf beats him due to Wolf's ability to beat zoners, if Pac-Man gets close to Wolf, he beats him up close. Remember how I said Wolf loses to fast frame data? Pac-Man's frame data is quite literally just strictly better than Wolf's. And things like that are the definition of flexibility. Coming around and being able to maneuver around your worst scenarios is the absolute best thing a character can have to be viable. And Pac-Man has all of it. Number 4 is going to be Palutena. Don't think that's any surprise, since I think most people know who the top 3 characters in this game are. She has been nerfed more times than any character in this game, I'm pretty sure. And she's still number 4. That is how good this character's kit is. I think she has a top 5 Nair. I don't actually think it's the best in the game. I think Game & Watch's is clearly better, but I still think it's very close. Her Nair is absolutely ridiculous. She has a very good recovery. The only flaw with her recovery is that teleports actually have a bigger window for 2-framing. I believe it's 6 frames, or it's either 6 or 4 frames instead of 2, which is ironic considering that she has some of the best 2-framing in the game. Her down tilt is ridiculous. Her up smash 2 frames and it kills at like 70 when it's fully charged. Her up smash, while risky, is incredible at catching normal get up because it lingers for so long. Her back air and her dash attack are both invincible. Her forward air, while being nerfed, is still very spaceable and it's -5 on shield. So I don't think the nerfs are nearly as bad as Zero Suit's. I think her biggest nerf was the down throw back air kill confirm. The fact that it's not true all the time anymore was a big hit for her, since I think she relies heavily on getting stray hits in neutral and advantage state to get kills. She doesn't really have many kill combos. She has an incredible killing back throw, but even that got inherently worse due to her grab range being reduced, but to be honest that should have happened a long time ago. She has at the very least a top 5 up air in the game. I think it could very well be better than that. It lingers forever, it kills ridiculously early, it's a self combo too, it combos out of Nair, it combos out of down throw if they're DIing in. Palutena's only weakness, which is of course a minor one, is that she can struggle a lot against short characters. For example, Pikachu is an atrocious matchup for her. I believe it's 65-35 at best. In fact, it's probably the worst top tier matchup in the game, and both Nairo and Esam think this, but the uncommon nature of Pikachu combined with her fantastic flowcharts allow her to overcome that little hump. And despite how many times she's been nerfed, she's still a lot of characters' worst matchup. In fact, I would even consider her the brick wall of Ultimate, and what I mean by that is that she gatekeeps a lot of the bad characters in this game. I believe she's always going to be the gatekeeper character, but it's a bit less prevalent now since she isn't as popular as she once was. On to top 3. I should start off by saying that I think these characters are all extremely close in terms of viability and strength. They all have an argument for being the best in the game. I think there's an order that I like more than others, but I wouldn't necessarily disagree with no matter who you put at number 3, who you put at number 2, who you put at number 1. But for me, number 3 is going to be Pyra/Mythra. There's so much to talk about of why this character is good, and it's just so many things. It's honestly just so overwhelming. We all obviously know that Mythra is the anchor of this team. Mythra should be doing 85% of the work. And then Pyra should just be used whenever you would use Charizard in Pokemon Trainer. Only in advantage state, and just as soon as you go back to neutral, switch to Mythra. I think that's how the character should be played. Mythra is one of the fastest characters in the game, both in ground speed and just applicably overall, which inherently makes her a zoner, very similar to Sonic. She's one of the campiest characters in the game despite not having any projectiles. Her entire kit is so fast that although a lot of the moves are a lot more punishable than you would think, similar to what I said about Rob down tilt, they happen so fast that you can't even react to the move happening. So by the time that you've reacted, you're already losing multiple punish frames. And then the move has become completely safe on shield by the time you pressed a button. Not only is Mythra's neutral comparable to, it might be better than characters like Sheik or Fox. Mythra might have the most oppressive neutral in the entire game. We have never had a sword character in Smash history that is a fast faller and that is this fast, which makes for a very new character design despite how many sword characters are already in the game that people really don't know how to deal with. Mythra dash attack is obscenely broken. It's one of the best dash attacks in the game. The character can throw out so many normals without any repercussions, it's so insane. The character kills surprisingly well with just Mythra, but of course, if you want to switch, you have the powerhouse of Pyra, who's just Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Ganondorf. Pyra's lead trapping is very good. Her forward tilt is probably her best move. All she has to do when ledge trapping is just flick the little yellow stick in your direction. And that's all you have to do to ledge trap effectively as this character. Either you're dying to a forward tilt at 90, or it puts you in so much shield stun that you can't dash grab, you can't punish, and she just does 2 more forward tilts. Until you're like, damn it, I'm done with this. You jump, oh, she just did a forward air. You're back on the edge. Her neutral B kills at like 50 on the edge and has no end lag. Her side B, the Flaming Edge, is a jail side B, as was described by Mars. I thought that was a very accurate description, where if you shield it, now you're in jail, and you can't escape. The only thing this character struggles with is recovery. I think her recovery is absolutely abysmal. I think Pyra's recovery is better than Mithra's, to be honest. Mithra's up B is pretty weird when snapping to the ledge, and Mithra's side B is pretty terrible for recovering, like it's genuinely awful. And the only reason she should ever get back on stage with a side B is if you don't know how to deal with it, which most players don't. The other weakness is that there are a lot of matchups where Pyra just crumbles. Pyra pretty much cannot be pulled out in any matchup against a fast character. They are, of course, the most common character in the meta. The top 2 players in the world play her. I think this character definitely loses more matchups than the general community lets on. I think she loses to Diddy Kong, I think she loses to Joker, I think she loses to Pikachu, and I think she loses to Inkling. Inkling is probably the hottest take there, but I do think that Inkling beats this character. Oh my god, and I completely forgot about Foresight. Don't get me started on that mechanic. Foresight activates frame 2, so Mithra has a frame 2 air dodge. It slows down the enemy, and it allows Mithra to get a very big punish. I think Foresight's best usage is when you're being hit with multi-hit moves on shields, and when you're getting projectile camped. I've seen clips of Mithra foresighting a full screen Youngling Fire Arrow, and she punishes it with a forward smash. Youngling Fire Arrow is one of the safest things to do in the entire game, especially full screen. I think they're very, very toxic for the game, because they just force guesses continuously while not having to do barely any work to win neutral. And I think there would be 2 nerfs that would make the character a lot less frustrating to play against. The first nerf I would do would definitely be getting rid of their combo throws. Neither of these characters should have any combo throws. They should be like Fox, where Fox has an incredible neutral, a good dash attack, a good nair, but his grab is only good because he forces you to shield. He doesn't get that much off of it, but these characters are getting combos off that grab, and they force you to shield more than Fox does. And the second nerf would surprisingly be to Pyra. I would give all of Pyra's aerials and tilts a bare minimum of 3 more frames of lag. I don't think a character should be able to forward tilt 4 times at the edge, and 60% of the characters in the game can't deal with it. On a more optimistic note to end things off, I do not think that the counterplay for Pyra Mithra is being developed as quickly as the metagame for them. I truly do believe that the next couple months of majors is going to be the peak for the character's lifespan, and I think they're going to go down once the counterplay is optimized. They're not going to be terrible by any means, they're still always going to be super viable in my opinion, but I think the character could be demoted a couple spots on the tier list when people understand how to deal with certain moves, certain options, and just general counterplay to the character. Yet again, I would not blame you for making them the best in the game. There's definitely an argument for that, and I've thought it too myself at times, but I just think the 2 characters have a slight edge over her. And it's time for everyone's favorite game of Who's Number 1. Probably won't be a surprise to most if you looked at my last tier list. But number 2 is Joker. To start things off, I think Joker beats Pyra Mithra, which is already a big bonus point that puts him above her, because we've known for a very long time that Joker's top 3, and it's also been a long time since a DLC character entered that upper echelon, and the fact that he beats that one character is very good for him. This might be a controversial take, but I think Joker is one of the most well-designed top tiers in the game. Joker's one of my favorite characters to fight in the game. I think it's very fun to play against him. He has incredible neutral, he has incredible disadvantage, he's almost impossible to juggle because of down gun. His tether recovery is very solid. All his aerials either start, extend, or finish combos. Joker debatably has the best grab in the game at frame 6 with a very good range. And then of course, there's Arsene. I think Arsene is the second best comeback mechanic in the game, next to One Wing. I think the fact that Arsene gives Joker increased and extended hitboxes is one of the best things about it. It makes his forward air bigger. It makes his back air bigger, and sometimes it double hits for some reason. It makes his nair a disjoint. It increases the damage of his guns. It makes his smash attack stronger than Bowser's for some reason. And the only bad things about Arsene are that you can camp it out. I found myself having a lot of success doing it as Inkling, but I do think Inkling beats Joker. Camping out Arsene and staying in the reactable range of Ahaz is very effective against the character, and I think Arsene recovery is very, very bad. And it's easy to rinse and repeat edgeguard him with ledge drop double jump back air with most characters. I'm a firm believer that if your character does a combo that gets Joker off stage and simultaneously gives him Arsene, you should be able to burn his entire meter simply by hitting him off stage. Some people say things such as the fact that he doesn't have a good forward-facing aerial, the best one probably being fair, but that's not too useful. I think that's a pretty minor flaw if anything. Joker is able to checkmate a lot of the cast off stage simply by doing down gun, or even normal guns as we saw Zachary do against Gact at the latest Kagaribi. I think if you want to see an in-practice example of why Joker's so good, simply watch the loser's final set of Genesis 7, MKLeo versus Samsora. MKLeo knew that his tournament life was on the line, and he played to Peach's weaknesses as well as Joker's strengths, and he just destroyed Samsora. It wasn't even close. Anyways, I could go on and on about Joker, but the character is very, very good, very solid. The best player in the world played him for so long for a reason. That's no coincidence. That's all I'll say. And the number one character, to no one's surprise, honestly, if you know how much I value them, is gonna be Daisy. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's Pikachu. Of course it is. We all knew it'd be Pikachu. He was number 2 on my last tier list, only behind Wario, and the Wario nerfs did enough to solidify Pikachu at number 1 for me. Pikachu is just littered with good moves. I think Pikachu has no bad moves, and I think his worst move is probably forward tilt. And of course, it has its uses, so it's not even bad, it's just there has to be a ranking, there has to be a worst, there has to be a best. I think Pikachu has unarguably the best neutral B in the game. I think it's better than Gun. I think Gun is better with Joker's kit. But if you asked any other characters in this game, would you rather have Gun or Thunderjolt? I think 99% of them would do better with Thunderjolt. I think Pikachu has the best back air in the game. Honorable mentions for that position would probably be Palutena and Inkling. I should mention that I think Pikachu is one of the hardest characters in the game. I'm pretty similar to Mars with this mentality where I don't think combo complexity is really something that makes a character hard. Because you learn a combo once, and then you just gotta get consistent at it. You only have to learn a combo one time, and then you can do it. But I think it's different with Pikachu because although you can do the easier combos, it becomes a difference of like 30% to like 80%. Or death, to be honest. Or 0 to deaths, straight out. For the first time in all my time playing Ultimate, I played against a good Pikachu a couple days ago while I was doing a practice lobby, and that singular match solidified Pikachu as number 1 for me. At first, I thought the character was number 1, but it was a bit shaky, but now I'm a firm believer that they are the best in the game. And by all means, what I said earlier still stands true. I still think these two have an argument for the best in the game. But on my personal tier list, I think Pikachu solidified at number 1. The character has the best edge guarding in the game, and the best recovery in the game. Similar to Pac-Man, they do not have to waste their double jump to get back on stage. I think Pikachu has no major weaknesses. The character only has a couple minor weaknesses, one being that they're easier to 2-frame than most characters due to the nature of how Quick Attack works and how it grabs the ledge, and the other of course being that they're very light. And the reason I don't consider those major weaknesses is because there are multiple workarounds to both of those weaknesses that Pikachu players, mainly ESAM, are starting to implement. I think on paper, Pikachu struggles against sword characters, but Quick Attack completely negates that. But to end it off with this character, I think the biggest problem about Pikachu's metagame currently is that I don't think Pikachu will ever be a popular character in the meta. I think there will only ever be one Pikachu player playing him, being ESAM of course, and I think it's going to stay that way for the rest of the game's life. Simply because we've seen a lot of players try to pick the character up and just drop him in a matter of days, and they just don't want to deal with learning the combos and learning the optimization and learning what to do in every situation, whereas ESAM's been playing the character for over a decade so he knows the character inside and out. Of course, that's not going to change my opinions on the character, but I do think his meta could be developed a bit faster if there was a bigger community for him. And final note, I think the biggest threat to Pikachu right now in the meta is players starting to SDI more. Players are starting to SDI Pikachu combos, and all combos for that matter, a lot more. And it makes it a lot harder for Pikachu to get his most damaging combos, but he even has workarounds for those. So it's just going to be in the hands of the Pikachu players to adapt and to be able to understand the SDI and understand what combos to switch to. But apart from that, yeah, Pikachu is number 1 for me, and I think it's going to stay that way for a while. I have a lot of faith in this character, and I can't wait to see what ESAM does in the future when he starts traveling more. I'm going to go back and take one final look at my list to see what character spots, if any, should be changed. Okay, I just gone back and moved a couple spots, not too many, but just a reminder, this tier list is completely ordered by character. I really enjoyed doing this format of tier list this time around because yet again, S, A, B, C, D tier, sure it tells you where I think the characters are, but what does it mean to be an S tier character? And I think this better defines that. As you can see, I truly believe this game is very balanced, because this is the cutoff right here. Able to get top 8 at major tournaments with secondaries for bad matchups. I think from this tier up, you can play any of these characters and place well. We have never had a Smash game more balanced than this. There are hardly any fighting games more balanced than this. I think Sakurai nailed it out of the park with his game. Of course, I'm still shocked every single day that we have Sora from Kingdom Hearts, the Disney character in Smash Bros. Sakurai gets a well-earned, long vacation, and although this is definitely going to be his last Smash game, he gave the world so much, he changed millions of lives, quite literally. Every person who competes in this game, who plays this game for fun, he's affected in some way, whether it be great or small, that all depends, but this game is truly a masterpiece, and it's not completely perfect, but I love it nonetheless. Thank you again for sitting through what was inevitably a very long video. Be sure to like, subscribe, Give me your thoughts on your tier list, my tier list, and Smash Bros. In general for that matter. Thank you all so much, and have a nice day.